Eddie O'Brien, oh what a story to tell. 15 years young, caught in a prison cell, trapped in the system. Ain't that just a shame? For a crime he didn't do, they played him like a game. Pattern so clear, yet nobody sees. Intentional lies blowing in the breeze. Documented truths, but they're buried so deep. Poor kid lost his life while the system's asleep. Free Eddie, free him till it's backward. Guilty on paper, but he never had the hard facts. Let a fool think he won, that's how it goes. Eddie's innocence buried beneath all the woes. The man couldn't keep his own story straight. Taking a kid's future, ain't that real fate? Welcome back, chat got us talking hood-wise. Dark humor and metaphors disguised in the cries. Sir, hypothetically, in a murder case, ain't it funny how a fool runs this rat race? Growth don't happen in the middle of this mess. Step back, breathe, man, just let go of the stress. Free Eddie, free him till it's backward. Guilty on paper, but he never had the hard facts. Let a fool think he won, that's how it goes. Eddie's innocence buried beneath all the woes. See, you gotta let the clowns believe they succeeded. You didn't fold a break, you just got what you needed. Took it to the chin, not the heart, you see. Don't let the chaos take space in your melody. You're built different, like a lesson they missed. Teaching them boundaries, couldn't find them on a list. Drowning in a puddle, they dragged you below. But now you let them flounder, cause they reap what they sow. So here's to Eddie, just as long overdue. Fighting for the truth like we all have to do. Step back from the noise, watch him throw a fit. Free Eddie O'Brien, let's never forget this. Eddie O'Brien, oh what a story to tell. Fighting for his life in this unjust hell. Free him till it's backward. Guilty on paper, but he never had the hard facts. Let a fool think he won, that's how it goes. Eddie's innocence buried beneath all the woes.
Exculpatory truths left on the shelf. Margo Nash revealing the stealth. Turning pages, the story unfolds. The politics of murder, a truth bold and in every corner. The whispers of doubt, a system that's rigged. Can't we just shout? Behind those bars, he's waited too long. An innocent heart, where does he belong? Oh, Eddie, hold on tight. We're dancing for the truth tonight. Break the chains, let the world see. Your voice is strong, it's time to be free. Justice for Eddie, justice for all. We'll rise together, we'll never fall. Reevaluate, we're raising the stakes. Time to uncover the truth for justice's sake.
Oh snap. What's up, everybody, man? How we doing this morning? What is going on? How's everybody in the chat? Let's see what's going on over here. Big day yesterday. You know, a lot of girls went down to Cape Cod. They invaded the beach. You had Free Eddie O'Brien invading the beaches of Cape Cod. Good morning, Mikey, in the chat. Let's go. Ready for the heat. It's going to get hot. Oh, big shout out to the other side, over in Australia. Hi, Mikey. Robert Lord Talk is I'm ready. Free Eddie. Absolutely. Free Eddie now. Yep, free Eddie today. Screw the bullshit. Good morning, Mikey in chat. Free Eddie. Courtney says, good morning, Mikey in chat. Excited to hear these new chapters. Free Eddie, absolutely. Let me get this banner down here. This is an old one. Big disclaimer. We assume zero responsibilities for your outrage, your hurt feelings, your ability to distinguish entertainment, your sudden urge to file lawsuits, your decision to take satire personally. If you're offended, you should definitely, seek some professional help. Absolutely, man. But today I have a quick video I think we're going to watch this morning. Yesterday, Margo Nash was down Cape Cod, and reading out some of the chapters of her book. Read Margo's book full of facts. Absolutely. We're into chapter 20, which we'll get into probably after the video. The testimony begins. So we're almost halfway through Margo Nash's book, and as soon as we get there, we're going to be ready for the 6 final chapters of Margo Nash's book. Shout out to Denise Noel, free Eddie. Good morning. Teresa says free Eddie. Remember to hit the like button. Absolutely, and give some memberships today. On the weekends, we be gifting memberships. And they're always good because we have over 300 members, which is awesome because when new people come in, they automatically receiving these memberships, which is great. So if you can, we really appreciate it. Give some memberships, super chats. What a beautiful family they are. Love your show. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And soon more and more people will start, coming over to check out what we got going on with Free Eddie. I mean, we're going to have so much stuff that you never even seen before coming up, so you're going to catch it first here. That is a guarantee. Good morning, Mikey. Great time yesterday. Eddie has a beautiful family. It was an honor to meet them and spend time with them. I absolutely probably agree with you, and I'll meet them soon. Me and my wife will be going out there probably the middle of July, right? Yeah, sometime middle of July. So we'll definitely be going out there soon. Irish Rose, shout out, free Eddie. And I think we're going to have Aunt Jerry up on the show soon. Hi, shout out Teresa with the $20. That'll definitely go to my internet this week because they shut me off yesterday. But I worked a deal out with them. We got it back on. That's why I wasn't live last night. But big shout out to Law Talkers. How you doing? But yeah, what a nice day it is, man. Beautiful, beautiful day out there. So everybody went out to Cape Cod last night. Well, yesterday, spent the day out there with Margo Nash. Margo was reading chapters out of her book. So the politics of murder, the truth about Eddie.com. You definitely have to go over there and check out that book. I mean, the truth about EddieO'Brien.com is definitely Definitely something I think everybody needs to look at, because people come up to me and they say, "Oh, he's guilty." Not come up to me. They wouldn't dare come up to me and say that. But they would say he's guilty. And I asked them, family man, yo, why is he guilty? Why do you say he's guilty? Shout out to Sherry Lee Free, Eddie O'Brien. Why do you say Eddie O'Brien is guilty? And they tell me, well, a jury convicted him. And I was like, that's all you have is a jury convicted Eddie. A jury convicts a lot less. A jury can convict a damn ham sandwich. It don't take much for a jury to convict somebody. So I really had no faith in the jury system whatsoever. They say it's the greatest system we have in the world. I mean, if it is, well, we have more men and women in prisons than we do in colleges in the United States of America. And in the United States of America, we have more men and women and children in prisons than all the countries in the world combined. Imagine that. You add up all the inmates around the country, and America has more people in prison. If you build them, we will fill them. And that's how they looked at it. You build them, they will fill them, especially in the 90s. But we're not trying to get sympathy here. It's about accountability, right? Eddie O'Brien wasn't just a name in the headline. Eddie was a kid that they turned into a political pawn. That's right. We are the least free of all free countries. Absolutely. And we're the ones that say we are a free country. I moved the camera around a little bit. Not sure if I'm going to stay there, but I got too many cameras. Not sure if the camera is gonna stay where it's at. Probably not. You can see my little no neck.
Not promote or promotion any illegal activities. All content provided by this channel is meant only for educational purpose only.
So Eddie O'Brien, they had his name in the headlines. He was just a kid who they turned into a political pawn. And I thought about it the other day. I was like, Eddie O'Brien has 15 years on the street, 15 years in the real world, right? And he has over 31 years in prison. Now, prison is a world all by itself. 31 years there. So 31 years of the same routine every day. It's really going to take a lot when he comes home. But I think he has a great family that's committed to Eddie, that's going to help him make these tough transitions. And it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. But we didn't come here to play, right? We came here to make noise for justice, man. So buckle up. We're going to watch Margo Nash's breakdown, how storytelling became a weapon against corruption. And remember, say it loud, right? Say it proud. Everyone put in the chat, free Eddie till it's backwards. And give me a minute. I'm going to get this video up, and we will be right back.
Where the whispers play, the door of the frame holds the
secrets of the day. Locked on to Eddie, they whispered his name. Caught in a tempest, a life gone insane. Down in the dark, where the sailor path runs, a set of keys hit the dirt under disappearing suns. A house key, a car key, lost in the rush. But the state swept it up like a hand in the crush. Eddie's freedom cry, can you hear it loud? Breaking through the darkness, piercing the shroud. 30 years in chains, but the truth won't die. Unseal the past, let Eddie rise high. Unseal the notes, expose all the blocks. Rayleigh trapped Eddie in a manufactured box. 30 years of hidden facts buried in the track. It is time to give Eddie O'Brien his freedom back. Unseal the box, break down the lock. Let the truth ring louder than the courthouse clock. 3 decades of silence, a cold prison shell. Refuse to lie, they cast a wicked spell. No remorse in their eyes, they judge from the booth. But Eddie stands tall, anchored in truth. Summer is opening, the science is real. The manufactured box begins to peel. Voices collide as hope takes its stand. With every heartbeat echoes a drowning band. Eddie's freedom cry, can you hear it loud? Breaking through the darkness, piercing the shroud. 30 years in chains, but the truth won't die. Unseal the past, let Eddie rise The drums roll thunder through the halls of despair. With strings and brass, they unite in the air. A symphony of chaos reflects in the night. The fight for Eddie grows bigger, takes flight. Beneath boundless skies, the walls start to shake. Each note of resistance, a wave in the wake. A revolution of honesty will cut through the lies. As the world turns its gaze, a new dawn will rise. So gather the voices who waited too long for Eddie O'Brien. We'll sing out strong. His freedom's a fire, lighting up the gloom. As the massive, triumphant clock brings truth to the room.
Okay, we back. And before we go any further, I just want to let it be known, right, to everybody in the chat and anybody watching on the replay, this content right here is owned by Sherry Lee, right? So you don't have permission to restream it, re-upload it, clip it, redistribute it in any form. If you want to use this material, I think you need to get the express written permission from the copyrighted owner. No exceptions, no loopholes, no fair use excuses. Respect the work, respect the creator, and respect the law. So you want to check this out, you have to get permission. You know? So we're going to get into this, and we're going to get into Margo Nash. You know, I can't wait till the 6 chapters are, printed in the book. Let's go. Okay, where are we?
I can sue you. This is true.
Don't mess with a lawyer. They're already talking about, I'll sue you.
My lawyer can't go after you. Right. You're my lawyer. It's been approximately 10 years since The Politics of Murder was published. Much has happened over those years. Changes in the law, Eddie O'Brien's transfer to medium security at Northeast Correctional Center Institution at Gardner, information received and investigated since the publication in 2016. These changes and developments seem to trickle in, with lengthy periods of inactivity in between. This is the reality of how slowly the justice system moves, especially for inmates who are working on post-conviction appeals, requests for reversal, requests for new trials, and requests for clemency for the convictions. I frequently ask myself whether the needle has moved at all in Eddie's case since the publication of Politics of Murder. Many days I think not. On other days I am amazed at how much information we have gathered since then and how much further along the road to getting some relief from his wrongful conviction we are. Those are usually the days when I speak to Eddie on the phone. His patience and determination carried me through the times.
I gotta say, everybody I speak with always talks about Eddie's determination, Eddie's patience. So do you all think that the needle has moved since we've been doing these streams? The streams that JFK has done, has the needle moved? Do people have a different opinion of Eddie O'Brien? And is there anybody in the chat that once thought that Eddie was guilty? I mean, speak freely. We know how you feel now. That's all that matters. I mean, at one point, we all might have thought Eddie, was guilty in the beginning. You would never think that you would get an administration, because when you first hear that a 15-year-old boy was set up, that there was a 15-year-old boy set up, it's hard to believe, isn't it? It's hard to believe that politicians that we vote in, adults, parents, I'm sure Riley has kids. It's hard to believe that any man, woman, or group would set up a 15-year-old boy. But we have seen through all the legal work that just alone I've been breaking down. I mean, looking at all the evidence, looking at the DNA. I mean, I think I broke down the DNA where a high school kid could understand it. So go check that episode out. Because if you're not convinced by now, I'm not sure what will convince you. I think if you're not convinced by now, there must be some bias. Now, I was in the chat. Well, we'll get to that in a little bit, but I was in the JFK chat the other day, and it was brought up, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
When the needle seems stuck, he has not rested a day during these last 10 years. Most of what I present in these new chapters is a direct result of the arduous work and the endless hours Eddie has spent requesting and combing through the often handwritten notes he received from his Freedom of Information request. Hundreds of documents we didn't have access to before they were produced, exposing the shameful corruption and the deliberate errors in the proceedings which unjustly kept him in prison for the last 31 years. We had other help as well. Many readers are familiar with Karen Reed, who was charged with the murder of her boyfriend, a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. The retrial was held in the Superior Court for Norfolk County in 2025. The first trial ended in a hung jury. During those two trials, unimaginable prosecutorial misconduct and police corruption were exposed on national television. Similar political collusion and corruption I wrote about 10 years ago was playing out live on television daily, and the viewers were witnesses to it. Such corruption suddenly did not seem as far-fetched as it had in 2015. Unfortunately, yet another person accused of murder was forced to go through a life-altering ordeal that robbed her of her liberty, her reputation, her employment, and cost her millions of dollars to defend herself.
And we know, of course, she's talking about Karen Reed. And it's kind of good that this did happen to Karen Reed, in a way. Hear me out, because I think it showed you, when we seen it happen to someone privileged, and I think Sherry could, kind of, speak about this, and so could the O'Briens, because we see it happening all the time to people that are not privileged, people that are from, that are black or brown or poor and just can't afford to fight the system. We see it all the time, how, how many people are wrongfully convicted. And I think someone said the other day, it could be anywhere from 10 to 30 years before you're exonerated. So now we've seen someone privileged. We've seen a privileged person be jammed up by the system. A law professor, someone that has money. She drives a Lexus. I mean, Karen Reed absolutely opened the door to a lot of this. So when we seen this happen to someone privileged, a lot of people opened their eyes and said, oh shit, this could be me. Or this could be you. And now, and thank God for the Karen Reed situation, because now we're able to talk about exonerated men. Nobody would listen before when we talked about, there's men in prison that were screwed over, and people are like, yeah, oh, so, but now we can actually have a conversation that there's men and women and children that are locked up every day for stuff that they didn't do. All right, 1 second. It down. There you go. You got the full screen, Margo. It's all you.
Before the second trial began, she already owed $5 million in deferred legal fees to her lawyers. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts has such enormous financial and personnel resources that the scales of justice are always tipped in its favor, no matter what the defendant has. No matter that the defendant has the presumption of innocence. If they cannot pay eye-watering amounts of money for a team of defense attorneys, the best forensic experts, the best scientific labs, then the fight is as lopsided as David and Goliath. I'll take a $1 million defense fund over the presumption of innocence any day. By the time Karen Reed got to trial, she'd lost that presumption in the press, just as Eddie had. The presumption is not going to win the case if the defendant cannot access funds for investigators, forensic analyses, several lawyers, and expert witnesses needed to properly defend the case. With funds to hire a small army necessary, at least the defendant has a fighting chance. The presumption of innocence can also not fight the blue code of silence of the police or the collusion among the many state offices that participated in Karen Reed's prosecution, or should I say persecution. What we all saw in that courtroom was what most people could not see in 15-year-old Eddie O'Brien's courtroom. None of us were ready for that in 1995. Scores of bloggers and podcasters championed Karen Reed's cause and supported her with fundraisers and marches. A whole subculture of groups in the innocence, wrongful conviction, and police anti-corruption world joined forces and raised the consciousness of the public to the point where the debacle that was unfolding was undeniable. Without such overwhelming support, I doubt she would have prevailed. One of those podcasts turned its attention to Eddie O'Brien's case when the Karen Reed trial was over. That is when the landscape changed for Eddie. We were introduced to a large community of people who understood what had happened to him. It started with one woman in the community posting a photo of the politics of murder, which is in the room today, on her Facebook page with the comment, "If you thought the Karen Reed case was corrupt, you've got to read this book." A podcast picked that up and began researching the case. They live streamed 38 episodes of their show about Eddie O'Brien. A wealth of new information came out of those sessions. That information alone informed investigations into other possible suspects. On a personal note, I was finally able to accept in my own legally trained mind that the
I think so far it's been pretty good. Thank you, Robert. Next time, let's see who else is in the chat. I have to go back. Really, it was a pleasure to meet Denise. Trisha, I love you. Free Eddie, right back at you. How's the leg, Trish? Better? Or the knee? Aunt Jerry in the chat. We're going to talk to Aunt Jerry very soon. I have to talk to her and see what's a good time. Tomorrow's good. Tomorrow will be a nice Sunday show. Yep, they invaded the beaches of Cape Cod. Free Eddie. Yes, please like and subscribe. And, oops. Okay, let's see. So happy you get to meet each other. And I think there'll be a private by invite only freedom party coming up for Eddie. So we'll keep you all posted on that. But it's invite only. From the moment I heard Eddie speak at his parole here, and I believed him, never a doubt. He's innocent all the way from Australia. Mike, you did a wonderful job explaining the DNA. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Ed. Ed, you didn't go to the beach? You didn't want to go to the beach, Ed, get no sun? Yes, we should have a Keeping It Real barbecue this summer. I think there may be something planned, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. I just want to get to all of this, make sure I don't miss anything. So Margo talks about a podcast that busted down 38 episodes, on diving into the Eddie O'Brien case. Eddie is so happy about the pitches. Absolutely. Sherry Lee, Free Eddie O'Brien. We got to do hashtag FEOB. Thank you. Eddie makes me very happy. I would do anything to help bring him home. And it's so good. It's kind of awesome that Eddie has somebody like Sherry and so many other supporters, especially Sherry, because for a man that's been down 30 years, just a mental conversation with him, going to visit him, taking his phone calls, sending him a letter, that goes a long way, especially just sending a man a letter and them getting, I used to be excited when I got a pink slip under my door, even if I got mail back, that was a grievance filing MF, man. I always filing a grievance when I was like, you know, I got nothing else to do. I might as well buck the system, you know. But that only gets you so far. That only gets you so far, you know. But I was excited to get grievance mail back. So anytime an inmate, I mean, I hate calling them inmates, you know, a convict gets mail. Yeah, imagine at $5 million, any of us would be in prison for this right now. Yes. And how about this? If it wasn't Karen, it was going to be Lucky. Lucky Loughlin was going to be the fall guy. You know, you hear a lot of NFL players talking about it. Everybody got to have a fall guy. We can do the same for Eddie. We actually can. You know, we just got to get other content creators and start talking about this, you know, in a good way, not a hateful way. But again, just to let everyone know, this content is, you know, copyright protected. So, you know, you should get permission before using it. It's only the respectful thing to do. We know Sherry are happy for the both of you. Teresa, thank you, JFK, for your work. Edward have the bow around a half dozen roses. You know, so yeah, of course, the podcast that they're mentioning is, you know, that she's talking about. Everyone knows, it's no secret. It's the JFK show. You know, I'm done. I think they're up to 40 something episodes. You know, so yeah, so no, they put in a lot of work too, you know, and we're just going to continue to go forward and pushing great content. I always say I would have never known about this case if I didn't hear it over on, you know, when Randy JFK started talking about it. I wouldn't know about that. So I at least have to, you know, I have to acknowledge that because, you know, we all out for the same thing, free Eddie. You know, till it's backwards. So Eddie is free.
Came out of those sessions. That information alone informed investigations into other possible suspects. On a personal note, I was finally able to accept in my own legally trained mind that the collusion and corruption went even further than just incompetence with a smattering of obfuscation. I now firmly believe that this was a coordinated and carefully executed plan to convict an innocent young boy for a horrible murder for the sole purpose of advancing personal and political gains. I also believe that the police and prosecutors knew that Eddie did not brutally murder Janet Downing. They intentionally refused to look at any evidence that pointed to any other possible suspect. They intentionally withheld exculpatory evidence critical to Eddie's claim of innocence, and they fabricated incriminating evidence to convict him. This is in this addendum to the politics of murder. I'm going to show you how.
Oh, we can't wait for the book.
I have it on disc.
That was just the addendum.
Except in my own legally trained mind, what happened to him. It started with one woman in the community posting a photo of the politics of murder, which is in the room today, on her Facebook page with the comment, "If you thought the Karen Reed case was corrupt, you've got to read this book." A podcast picked that up and began researching the case. They live streamed 38 episodes of their show about Eddie O'Brien. A wealth of new information came out of those sessions. That information alone informed investigations into other possible suspects. On a personal note, I was finally able to accept in my own legally trained mind that the collusion and corruption went even further than just incompetence with a smattering of obfuscation. I now firmly believe that this was a coordinated and carefully executed plan to convict an innocent young boy for a horrible murder for the sole purpose of advancing personal and political gains. I also believe that the police and prosecutors knew that Eddie did not brutally murder Janet Downing. They intentionally refused to look at any evidence that pointed to any other possible suspect. They intentionally withheld exculpatory evidence critical to Eddie's claim of innocence, and they fabricated incriminating evidence to convict him. This is in this addendum to the politics of murder. I'm going to show you how.
I have it on disc. I can't.
That was very good. That was very good. It gives us, it just gives us a look at how the book is going to be, So can't wait for the extra 6 chapters. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. So what'd you think about, Margo, talking about the 6, the addendum, for the new book, 6 more chapters. The politics of murder, the power and ambition behind the altar boy murder case. You can go to your bookstore and reserve a copy. You can go to Amazon, but I think Amazon gets like 30-40%. 10 chapters. Oh boy, 10 chapters. I'm over here thinking it was going to be 6. Boy, they added 4 extra chapters in there. Because originally it was 6 they were talking about. Oh yeah, we can't wait. Boy, that is gonna be pretty damn exciting. Bill, we're gonna go over some of first. You know what? I want to go over the notes, but I also want to get into this book a little bit. So, you want to hear chapter 20? The testimony begins. This should be a good one. So we're gonna get over. We'll go over chapter 20. The testimony begins. Keep pushing out this Eddie O'Brien content. But give me a minute. We'll be right back.
In a world
up the gate. Oh. They focused on the wounds as if pain could define the essence of a kid who's meant to shine. A constitutional failure right before our eyes, lost in the shuffle where justice dies. America, can you see? Can you open the door to the voices unheard, fighting for more? Every single expert, they knew the facts. Non-violent heart, it's not an act. He was meant for healing, not this dark fate. But the court turned blind and sealed up the gate. Every story is a lesson, not just for today. A reminder to listen, to show a better way. When the voices of the many are ignored with disdain, we've lost the battle and it's all in vain. Let the facts, put them together like a puzzle, feel the cracks. What you laid out is clean and sharp, not a lost boy caught in the dark. Witnesses, whispers in the maze, mapping out a truth not lost in the haze. Together like a puzzle, feel the cracks. What you laid out isn't wild at all. It's a map to a shadow where the secrets fall. Party in the night, drawing close. It's a rhythm you feel. Can you tell me more? 8:30, it fits, doesn't it? The hours unwind, let's commit. Imagine a timeline, clean and sharp, not a lost boy caught in the dark. Witnesses whisper in the darks. Can you hear me? It's a story we never knew. Whisper to unfold, lay it out clean and cold. Whispers in the maze, mapping out a truth not lost in the haze.
Mikey, we discover the lines, body and soul intertwined. When shadows dance beneath the moonlight, pieces connecting in the dead of night, bringing light to the truth that's out of sight. We break it apart, we ignite. Oh Mikey, oh let's shine through the fight, revealing the stories in black and white. Did he lurk till
You're tracing lines, assembling facts, put them together like a puzzle, feel the cracks. What you laid out isn't wild at all. It's a map to a shadow where the secrets fall. Party in the night, drawing close. It's a rhythm you feel. Can you tell me more? 8:30, it fits, doesn't it? The hours unwind, let's commit. Imagine a timeline clean and sharp, not a lost boy caught in.
Let's go, everybody, man. Free Eddie. Eddie, here we go. We're going to get into Margo Nash, Politics of Murder.
On the evening show. They needed a monster for the 5 o'clock news. A 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a bloodstained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They call him a predator to hide their own lies, but we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. They hid all the palm prints, the DNA strands, put a lifetime of blame on a child's scarred hands. But the science is speaking, the silence is broke. We're tearing the fabric of the web that they spoke. He's grateful and compassionate, steady and true. An innocent man wearing prison cell blue. The system can bend, but it's breaking today. We won't stop shouting till he walks away. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. Tired of their stories, tired of the pain. We rise up together, we'll dance in the rain. He's our gentle giant, our shining star. We'll fight till the end, we'll carry him far. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy.
All right, we back. Look, I just got a letter from an attorney. Oh, actually, the camera's here. I actually moved it. This is the guy that sued me, right? Because I said he was an alleged. How can I say? I want to be careful with this. No, I don't, because I believe it to be true. This guy is a creep. This guy is a teacher in a school, allegedly, that's allowed to work around kids when he ain't allowed to be around his own daughter because he did some shady ass shit. And he's suing me. You know what I mean? They said, kindly take notice that at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, July 8th, the attorneys for plaintiff Bailey Braga will take the deposition of Michael Rebel at the office of a plant seller in Goldman for the purpose of discovery for use as evidence or both before a notary public. I certified that on June 10th. Yeah, whatever, buddy. I mean, guy's a creep. Still allowed to work in the school system. Be careful where you send your kids to school. Be very careful where you send your kids to school. But we're going to get into the politics of murder. You know, I just wanted to read that. You know? Yeah, how do a lot of people sleep at night? But yep, and I didn't go to the first deposition because I said I don't have an attorney. And I'm not comfortable going to a deposition. There it is. I'm not comfortable I was looking for that, Denise. I'm not comfortable going to a deposition where I didn't have an attorney, but they forced me to go. So I'm going to go. Only because I'm being forced to. All right, give me a minute. Yeah, so go over in the Give Send Go. Yeah, I mean .com. Go, check it out. Seeking exoneration and truth for Eddie O'Brien. Yep. So go over there and check that out. That'll be great. Go to Give Send Go, and I'm gonna pin that in just a second. I got to get back into my YouTube to do it. You should all check out Trafficking in a Murder Providencetown Mystery by Jeanette. How do you say that last name? Bavor? Bavor? She's a friend of Margo's and a longtime supporter of Eddie's freedom, and his case is mentioned in it. Well, you should tell her to come on the show, and we'll do an interview with her. That'll be what's up. But if you're just joining us, we went over, Margo reading, the beginning of the book. What do you call it? There's going to be 10 extra chapters. Was that the acknowledgement? Well, Margo read something at Providencetown. It was pretty good, and we'll go over it, and we'll definitely go over it again. But we're getting into chapter 20 right now. The testimony begins in Margo Nash's book, Politics of Murder. The Commonwealth's first witness was John Arnold. That was Walter Goldman's son-in-law. He worked like one night a week at Midnight Convenient. Arnold, coincidentally, was also a court officer in the Somerville District Court. On Saturday night, July 22nd of 95, Eddie brought a green penknife down to the Midnight to show Arnold. He was a knife collector. Eddie wanted to know if the knife or the pair of knives, it was a set, was collectible or worth any type of money. If so, whether Arnold was interested in buying it. Eddie already had told him about the knives the week before. Arnold told Eddie to bring them in and he'd take a look at them. There was no dispute about those facts. The point of Jack Arnold's testimony was simply to identify the piece of metal found on Downing's stairway. Riley asserted that the green penknife was the murder weapon, but the penknife was never found. All he had was the hilt of the knife. He questioned Arnold about it. At some point, did he give you that green knife? Yeah, he handed it to me. I looked at it. What did you do with it? I just opened it and looked at it. And did you notice something? I noticed the hilt on the knife was loose. And what is the hilt? You open a knife, the hilt opens up with the knife. There's two hilts on either side of the blade. Did you touch that hilt? Yeah. What did you notice about the hilt? It was real loose. What happened next? I told him it was a piece of junk. And that's when I handed it back to him. And he handed it. What did he say? He said he asked me to leave it under the counter until tomorrow morning. Well, Jack identified a number of photographs of the store and the counter under which he placed Eddie O'Brien's knife that night. Then Riley showed him a photograph of the red knife. Do you recognize that? Similar. Similar to what, sir? Similar to the knife that Mr. O'Brien showed me on the 22nd. Similar in what respect? Everything but the color of the knife. It was green instead of red. I direct your attention to the hilt area. Looks like the same hilt that was on the green knife, Mr. Arnold. I would ask you to look at the object that's in that bag and ask you whether that object is similar to the green knife you saw on Edward O'Brien the night of July 22nd. It is. In what way? The scroll on both sides of the knife. I asked you to examine a piece of metal contained in that bag and asked if you recognize that piece of metal. It looks like the hilt of a knife. Is that similar to the hilt that you saw at Eddie O'Brien's green knife? Yes. I mean, how many knives were made have that type of hilt? July 22nd of 95, yes. And what was it conditioned on that night? It was firm, or was it loose? It was loose on the knife. How loose? You could move it with your hands. Riley ended with the witness. He had gotten exactly what he needed from Jack Arnold. He implanted in the mind of the jurors the piece of metal found at the murder scene belonged to Eddie O'Brien. I mean, did he? Is that what you get out of that? Because there's a hilt that they find on the third stair. There was another knife similar to that Eddie had. But where's the rest of it? George cross-examined him, and establishing that Arnold had known Eddie for a few years, even before Eddie began to do the Sunday morning papers. He turned to the actual knife he seen that Saturday night. Arnold couldn't say that the piece of metal in the evidence bag that Riley had just shown him was the same one from the knife that he seen. It was similar. On redirect, Riley had Arnold testify that police first interviewed him on the Tuesday after the murder, the day Eddie was arrested. This seemed an odd and isolated fact with no bearing on his testimony. Besides, the police report indicated that he was first interviewed on Wednesday, July 26th. It acquired importance and context when the next witness testified. The next witness was another son-in-law of Walter Golden, Frank Kling. Kling worked with Eddie on the morning of July 23rd. Riley questioned him. In the course of the morning of Sunday, July 23rd, 1995, did Eddie O'Brien show you something? Yes, he did. What did he show you? He showed me a small knife. And what color was it? A greenish pale green. What did he say to you? He showed me the knife that he had after I took it from him and opened it up. And did you notice something about that knife? But when I opened it up, I noticed it was cheap. Do they all say ah? Ah. Ah. The other guy too. Cheap. A cheap knife. And the hilt on the side were loose. I just closed it back and gave it back to him. And what did you do with that green knife with the loose hilt? I handed it back to him. And did he take it? Yes, he did. Did you ever see that green knife with the loose hilt again? No, I didn't. At what time Sunday morning was that? It was like 10 in the morning. Somerville Police Investigative Report, July 26, 97. Statement of Jack Arnold, Lieutenant Francis Kelly. I was just looking up something. Riley had Kling compared to the metal piece in the evidence bag with what he seen that day. He said that it looked similar to the one he saw. On cross-examination, George established that Kling had never mentioned that he noticed the hilt was loose on the knife. George asked Kling to review the entire transcript of his testimony at the grand jury hearing in August of 95. Kling admitted that he saw no place in the recorded testimony when he talked about the hilt being loose. Wow, what do you know about that? We heard that a lot in the Karen Reed trial, too. George tried to establish when Kling first told Riley about the loose hilt. Kling flattered and said It was when Riley came to his house with detectives 2 days before the grand jury testimony in August of '95. I would have wondered, was Riley straightened by then? Y'all know that before Eddie's trial, right? Riley was bow-legged, and he had to get his shit fixed. He had to get like leveled. You know, he was actually 2 inches taller when the Eddie O'Brien trial came along. I mean, most people get a haircut, buy a new pair of pants. Let me go get a new tie. This guy had to get leveled the hell out. Imagine that. But he said Riley maybe wasn't there, and he told detectives about the loose hilt at his house 2 days before he testified at the grand jury. He couldn't explain why if he told them the hilt was loose in his grand jury testimony 2 days later. And in answer to Riley's direct question to him, he said he'd never examined the hilt. Oh. It immediately became clear that the prosecution had revised Kling's testimony during his preparation, a big score for Attorney George. A lot of skill goes into the question a lawyer doesn't ask. For example, George didn't ask whether Kling had talked to Jack Arnold, his brother-in-law, about the case over the past 2 years. That could have changed his testimony without implicating the district attorney. And it would make perfect sense that the two of them compared their testimonies, and that Kling's memory could have tainted by Jack Arnold's clear memory of the hilt. Kling was far from the last witness whose testimony had transformed over the course of the last 2 years. After multiple interviews by the district attorney and investigators from his office. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about, them changing up their shit, changing up their friggin' testimony? Yeah, so they changed up their testimony, these two guys. What they said during the grand jury wasn't exactly what they said. But I think Kling, right? Kling, they were supposed to help Riley's case. They were supposed to help the case, right? But their stories, I don't think they lined up at all. What Margo's showing us, right? That their memory, their credibility were just shaky, to say the least, right? Like they were guessing instead of trying to remember. You know, so when George, right, these dudes were part of these two guys, tied into the investigation. But the way they handled evidence, I mean, it just made things very, very messy. And it's pointing to how the system leaned more on politics than pressure with being honest. Because they had the pressure to get to the truth. I mean, I think Margo was saying that the way they compared the evidence was just off, like trying to match a friggin' puzzle piece that didn't fit, but you're trying to force it anyway. Maybe it'll fit if I just squeeze it a little more. I mean, I think that what we just read, it kind of hits hard about how people's memories, right, get used like weapons, and how like sometimes an eyewitness, it's not a very good witness. Because think about something you've seen, and write down what you've seen on that day, and shit might change a lot. I mean, I think what we just read, it's going to show how the case was built on BS, with politics, ambition steering the wheel instead of justice, Riley controlling the whole ship. A large question is why Eddie would have shown yet another person a knife that he intended to use to kill somebody later that night. A cheap piece of junk knife with a loose hilt. These two little decorative knives were a box set with Chinese carvings on them. And to this 15-year-old boy, they seemed more collectible, more valuable than an ordinary penknife. He had larger, far more effective knives lying on the floor of his bedroom if he was looking for a weapon to hurt somebody. Now, on the floor of his bedroom, you remember we talked about a couple chapters ago that they took a knife off the floor of his bedroom and they put it outside in the garbage can for another investigator to find it? Because it'll be more of a story. We find this shit outside in the garbage than we just found it in Eddie's bedroom. Am I right or am I right? It was BS. Chapter 21, the crime scene. I mean, this is where Margo Nash, I think, is going to really start painting a picture. You know what I mean? Like, this is, Margo she has seemed to do a very good job with this so far, getting up to the 20 chapters, man. But don't forget, man, like, comment, share. Can We Keep It Real podcast? This is where you're going to get all the straight up information, man. We got more stuff coming towards the end of June. We're going to get it first. So now we're going to get into, let's set up the scene, right? Officer Blair from the PD pulls up. You know what I mean? Tension's thick. He comes up on a chaotic scene, right? So let's get into what Blair sees. The murder weapon having been introduced, the Commonwealth turned the murder weapon a broken hilt. A broken hilt was the murder weapon. My goodness. The murder weapon having been introduced, the Commonwealth turned its attention to the crime scene and the first responders. Officer Joe Blair of the Somerville PD was the first to testify. He'd been the first on the scene. About 9:56 p.m., he encountered Ryan Downing sitting on the curb, removing his rollerblades and crying. With him were Barry Reckley and Ed O'Brien Sr. In fact, Virginia Reckley had been sitting next to Ryan and comforting him. Apparently, Blair did not know or remember this, and it was not raised on cross-examination. A minor point, perhaps, but it can remind the jury that in the chaos of a murder scene, the obvious can often be overlooked, even by a police officer. Ed O'Brien told Blair not to touch anything. Blair stopped, turned, and asked him to repeat himself. Imagine that. He told the cop, "Don't touch anything." The cop was like, "Excuse me?" Ed said, "You know what I mean when you see it." Blair went in the front door, then the foyer, and stood in the hallway. He observed the stairway in front of him, and midway up, he saw blood on the carpet and right-hand wall. He saw the hallway bathroom beyond the stairs and noted the water was running. He looked to the right and saw Downing lying face up on the dining room floor with a golden retriever beside her. He testified the dog got up, came to him, grabbed his left hand, led him over to Downing's body. Wow. Imagine that. Who got the color pictures of this? Can anyone send them to me? Can we keep it real 5@gmail.com? I don't know if Margo has them or Ed, if you have them. So what did Blair see? You know, blood on the carpet. That was the first red flag. Oh, snap. I mean, it's not just a drop, right? It's enough to make him realize that something violent really, really happened, right? What else did Blair see? Water running. That's another detail that I think matters in this case, right? The water running, right? It's eerie, right? Like someone was trying to wash something away and they left in a rush. They didn't even shut the water off, right? How about Ed O'Brien and Reckley? Like they're present, right? And Blair's trying to piece together who's who, what's what, and how the hell does all this shit connect? He's just pulling up on the scene. He sees this big ass guy, Ed, and I heard the Reckley guy was just as big. You know, well, maybe not that big. I don't know how people can be that big, but that's big. But why does this shit matter? I mean, I think it's showing us that the crime scene observations is setting the tone for the entire investigation, right? Like this shit is getting intense. Margo is basically hinting that what Blair saw and how he interpreted it, that shapes the narrative that's going to follow perception and reality, right? What's seen, what's assumed, you know, and what's later twisted around in court. Like this shit is crazy. I mean, Margo is saying, like, from the jump, this scene was chaotic. The cops walk in with adrenaline, not being clear, not paying attention to what's going on. That's how these small ass details, right? Little details, the blood, the water, the timing turned into big accusations later on. Big shout out Patricia, you know, with a big one, you know. Why the heck would Eddie or anyone have that kind of knife on the other bedroom floor if they just unalive someone? He didn't do it. That's why he did. He was a kid. Then they planted it in the trash. Sick. You know, but the water, the blood, the timing, I mean, all this is coming together. You know what I mean? Give me a minute. We'll be right back. Politics of Murder. Margo Nash. We getting into it today, man. Appreciate the super chats, man.
In the stillness of the night, voices whisper through the trees. We gather for the truth with a strength born of belief. They needed a monster for the 5 o'clock news. A 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a bloodstained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They called him a predator to hide their own lies. But we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giants, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home, and the thought.
All right, we back. I'm back. Let me know how you feeling. The music, we are here for Eddie O'Brien. That's what's up. Let me get this picture down. There we are. Booyah. Takes time to get all this stuff set up. Jesus is listening. Jesus is always listening. That's a fact. But we're going to get into, we're going to jump into the next page. Let me know how y'all feeling the book. You definitely got to go get yourself your copy. But this next section, or this next page, did Margo add to her existing book? Yes, 10 extra chapters. I thought it was 6. There's going to be 10 extra chapters, and in the beginning of this video, which we'll play it again, Margo was actually, talked about it. I think it was addendum. That's what it was, the addendum. But welcome everybody. We're breaking down some of the book, Margo Nash. Oh, Denise is pulling up with 10 gifted memberships. That's what's up. Big shout out to Denise, man. Gotta love the energy. I love when they're gifting the memberships because it gives other people, we get something out of it. It gives other people something, So when they come in, so congratulations to all the people that got the gifted membership. I don't have the YouTube page on, but to all the people that have the gifted membership, congratulations, welcome. And I hope you continue, to support. That's where you'll be able to catch all the full interviews, stuff like that. Everybody's going crazy over Carmelo. I mean, I think this is what we expected. We expected this. Here we are. Let's see. At Chrissy Jooms got a gifted membership. At North Shore Girl got a gifted membership. At James Jackson, man. Shout out to James Jackson picking up a gifted membership. Hey Paula got one. Bobby Costa, No, Raccoon Girl. All picking up them gifted memberships, man. So shout out. So I think in this next page, right, the moment the police, the medical technicians, they get on the scene when they first laid eyes on Janet, how their reactions, observations, and all the damn mistakes they made shake this entire case out. But Blair ends up, I already said he walked into the house and he realizes this isn't no small time shit. This ain't no small time situation here. I mean, he noticed the injuries, the position of the body, right? And overall condition of the room, and why his reactions even matter. The way that I think Blair interprets, it's going to become part of the official record. So let's get into this. So after the dog goes over and gently bites the cop on the hand and kind of like some lassie shit, Blair reached down to check her carotid artery. I mean, you can kind of see that there's not going to be a pulse. There was no movement, no reaction to his touch. Downing was cold to the touch and appeared deceased to him. When he pressed on the carotid artery, a gaping wound opened up. This was Blair's first homicide scene in 8 years as a cop. Imagine that when he touched that artery, they said it just opened right up on him. That's crazy. Emergency medical techs from the city of Somerville soon arrived, and he ordered them out and declared the area a crime scene. Shortly thereafter, paramedics arrived from the Cape Cod ambulance. They wanted to make efforts at resuscitation, and Blair allowed them to come in. Odd in light of his refusal to allow the city ambulance personnel in, they intubated Downing, inserted intravenous lines, began cardiac stimulation, and defibrillated her. During this process, all of her clothes were cut off with scissors. Blair noticed that her bra was lying loose across her breast. The paramedics cut it between the two cups. When they turned her body over, Blair saw the bra was unhooked in the back. He examined the bra and saw that it had many stab marks on it, yet there were no stab wounds to her breast, just above and below them. Now, what Regina pointed out something the other day, and I don't think she said it. Yes, turn on your memberships, man. That's very important. Turn on your memberships. Now, Regina said this the other day, and she said, you're a guy, so you might not realize this, but the whole bra thing, it was July. It was hot. Our boobies get hot and sticky. She went into saying it was kind of crazy hearing it come from Regina, right? So she said, when we get in the house as ladies, and ladies, I'm sure you all can relate to this, the first thing we do is what? I'm like, I don't know. Unsnap our bra. Loosen up our bra. So that's what Gina told me. Makes sense, right? It makes sense, ladies, does it? Blair introduced most of the crime scene photographs into evidence. Since there were no photographs of the victim, the body had been removed before the forensic photographer arrived. He identified what was at the scene when the victim was still there and what the medical personnel left behind. Oh, then he's pulling up with another 10-piece, people. Put on your gifted memberships, man. Like, put them on. Never Zengen get one. GFAB. Miss Luscious is picking one up. Shout out to Miss Luscious. Michigan Rose, Suck It Up, Buttercup. J How, Life Artist. Fisket Pony. At Meza 5555. You know, sometimes this is how you catch people, seeing who's watching. You know, but shout out to everybody picking up them gifted memberships. You know, we're talking about the politics of murder. Margo Nash's book, the Eddie O'Brien case. Eddie has a Rule 30 coming up, and he has a real good chance of actually being exonerated this time with new evidence, with DNA. You know, it's about to get real. It's about to get real. The gifted membership warriors are in the house today, like they are every weekend, you know. So pull up on weekends, we gifting out memberships. There was a substantial amount of medical debris, wipes, medical gloves, paper on the dining room floor that had to be explained to the jury. I'm not even sure if the medical guy, if they should have took Janet out. Did that screw up the crime scene? Did that screw it up for investigators? How much evidence was removed with Janet? Now, people, there's someone else's DNA under Janet's fingernails. Does anybody ever wonder why they stopped testing at Eddie? I mean, why did they take Adi Ortiz's? Thank you. I really appreciate that. I was creeping on a live somewhere and got it gifted. Right? But why did they take Adi Ortiz's blood if he wasn't a suspect to begin with? How about Paul Downing Sr.? He wasn't the best husband. You know what I mean? He's at the park beating a 15-year-old kid with a chain. Oh, Freebird showing up with a 20 spot. Shout out to Freebird. You know, always holding it down. You know, I got to say, Freebird always holding it down. You know, but we're here, gifted membership weekend. You know, talking about the politics of murder. You know, we went over, you know, the video earlier, Margo Nash, the addendum. You know, maybe after this chapter, we'll go over it again for the people that are just coming in. You know, share the stream. You know, we really appreciate it. You know, while the paramedics worked, Blair ordered his partner, Stephen Johnson, to secure the premises outside. He also passed the dog to Johnson, not a cat, a dog. Not a cat, a dog. To remove it from the house. Firefighters arrived but remained outside. The paramedics put Downing on a stretcher and moved her out of the house. As they transported her, blood dripping from the stretcher onto the hallway floor, the foyer floor, the front stairs, halfway down the front walkway, until Downing was transferred to a rigid stretcher and put into the ambulance. Should have they even removed the body? You know, should have they removed the body? I don't know if they should have ever removed the body from that crime scene. I think a lot of evidence went away with it. And then next, here comes Charles Firmino, someone that the mayor had no problem saying was dirty, was a dirty cop. I don't know. That's what the mayor said. You got to go ask the mayor. Charles Firmino and James Stanford from the Somerville Police Department arrived and took charge of the scene. Blair remained on the scene approximately 2 hours until about midnight. There was not much George could or would do on cross-examination with Blair. How about ask him about, was there a friggin' creep looking for his keys? You know, maybe it could have did that. I mean, the medical people come in, they look at the wounds, they see the blood, the body temperature. You know, Mr. O.B., Ed said that she looked like milky and had, you know, around her lips like white paste. You know, the room, the lighting, the blood patterns, all of it becomes evidence. I mean, all the blood that's in there, whoever did this to Janet got blood on him, without a doubt. You know what I mean? The book mentions, that the photos were taken, and that is very important. Why the photos matter, I think, because I think these pictures become the truth, right? The court sees, even if the scene wasn't handled perfectly, the pictures show a lot. If the scene wasn't secured, right, or documented correctly, the whole case can get twisted, right? So I think what Margo Nash is pointing out over here is showing how the earliest moments of this investigation were full of bullshit assumptions, right? Decisions were rushed, emotional reactions. They weren't doing good forensic work. Margo's basically saying that the foundation of this case is just shaky from the beginning. And when the foundation is shaky, everything you're trying to build on top of it is shaky also. George aimed to leave with the jury was that integrity of the crime scene was completely compromised by the number of people going in and out of it. He shows through Blair's testimony that there was some 14 people who came in and left the house before any perimeter set up to isolate the crime scene from further contamination. Regina said she was in there. Everybody was up in there. George continued through his questioning of all of the first responders to show that the civilians, medical personnel, and police had hopelessly contaminated the scene as they tromped about the house, unrestricted. He wanted the jury to deduce that the evidence found at the scene, therefore, was equally unreliable, and which, that you would think that's true. I'm not in me, but believe me, Janet should have not been removed from the scene. She was not alive. That's what I was thinking. I was like, how could Janet have been removed from the scene? I thought it absolutely contaminated the crime scene. This strategy was a double-edged sword. He wanted the jury to understand how blood got transferred from one place to another by stepping in it and carrying it into another room, or by an EMT throwing medical debris containing blood on a chair or against a wall. But if George knew there was blood evidence favorable to Eddie, then he certainly would not want the jury to question that evidence. I mean, the EMTs came over, they were throwing chairs over, they were moving stuff, and Riley would make you think that, oh no, that was because of the violent struggle in the house. Yes, there was a violent struggle, absolutely. The crime scene was already contaminated with all the people walking through it. Given the opening statement he made just that morning, it is unclear whether George understood the narrow line he was asking the jury to walk. How was the jury to decide what was and what wasn't contaminated? How would he establish that the DNA on the hilt of the knife and the DNA under Downing's fingernails was not contaminated, while other blood evidence have been contaminated? Sergeant Firmino had been with the Somerville Police for 14 years. He arrived at the scene at about 10:30 that night, according to his testimony. However, Janet was removed at 10:22. So his memory was clearly incorrect. He observed Eddie O'Brien Sr., Barry Reckley, and Officer Johnson inside the Downing house. Familia ordered the two civilians out of the crime scene. The EMTs and paramedics were still working on Downing and preparing for her transport. He walked past the medics and the victim and into the kitchen. He said he wanted to use the telephone in there. After Downing was removed from the dining room, Firmino conducted a protective sweep of the house. A little late for that, huh? To look for additional suspects or additional injured victims, assisted by Officer Michael Brown and Sergeant James Stanford. So if somebody was in the house, they could have got the jump on everybody. No one else was in the home. Crime scene tape was put up outside the perimeter of the house, and Brown was stationed at the cellar door to prevent anyone from entering or exiting. Johnson remained at the front door. In the dead area, Firmino observed a pair of women's slippers, a package of cigarettes, and an ashtray. On the couch was a pillow. In the living room, closest to the dining room, he observed an ottoman tipped over with a woman's earring next to it. In the hallway, he saw blood on the hallway floor, the door casings, the baseboard, the stairs, and the rugs. On the carpeted stairway, Firmino testified that he saw what appeared to be the hilt of a knife on the third step. This guy got some eyes. Firmino didn't order me to do shit, he said. Shout out to Ed. Just some pictures out of there. Firmino noted a bloody fingerprint above the doorknob of the inside of the inner door. In the kitchen, there was a small drop of blood on the kitchen floor, one on the refrigerator, and much more blood on the door and doorknob to the cellar stairs next to the refrigerator. In the cellar stairwell, there was blood stains and smears on both sides of the walls. At the bottom of the stairs, he noted a bloody fingerprint in the wooden beam. He followed the trail of blood over to the left side of the cellar door, past a clothesline with blood-stained clothes hanging on it, to the cellar door. There he observed a door and a boat with blood smears on that. The following day, in the daylight, Firmino saw what appeared to be a small drop of blood on the sidewalk. And that was where Eddie said he ran. So, of course, you are probably going to get blood down the stairs. We seen Jay Brill go down them same stairs, and he had to rest his hand up on the top of the beam and the walls. And Eddie had size 15 sneakers now, mind you. If you ever been in any of them houses, the old duplexes, they had like a door between both sides of the basements, because sometimes they would keep all the utilities on one side, so the other side of the tenant can actually get to their utility box. But, this is getting interesting. What do you think about the book so far? We're almost into chapter 22, The Day of Disasters. Give me a minute. Don't go.
Let me tell you about a kid, only 15 years. Eddie O'Brien, caught in the gears. Political pawns, they played their game. Power and money all in his name. But was tight with wealth, no simple fate. Climbed the ladder, sealed Eddie's state. Wayne Butter, prosecutor with a purpose. In the court of politics, none could touch us. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped their destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they break. Riley and Bud, best friends since youth. Built a law firm, they spun the truth. When Riley took the case, he was never alone. Built on foundations, power fully grown. With the Budwell network, they made a show. Charlie Baker in the mix, he's part of the flow. All linked together, climbing the heights on Eddie's back. Kimberly Budd, her name now in lights. Chief Justice of the Court in the highest of fights. Calls Riley godfather, mentor, uncle too. Let that sink indeed. Betty's pain paved through. Judge Heffernan ruled fair, you played your part, but the pressure came down like a storm in the dark. It wasn't about truth, wasn't about rights. It was all about power and their political heights. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped their destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they break. Eddie got used by a system so cruel. A pawn on the chessboard, they played him as a fool. So remember his name, let it echo, let it be free. Eddie till it's backwards. Fight for the right you see. Can we keep it real time? Let the truth ignite. We don't bend, we don't break. We will stand for the light.
There we go. We back. We back. So what do y'all think about it so far? I think the section we're at now, the blood trail, the physical evidence, right, inside the O'Brien's house, right? I mean, inside the Downing's house, I'm sorry. And how investigators just looked at it all. Margo's doing a very good job, I think, showing us how the prosecution tried to turn little tiny shit, scattered drops into a whole friggin' narrative, a whole murder narrative, which it's just insane. I mean, there were 2 small drops of blood in the kitchen, one near the rear door, one near the cellar stairs by the refrigerator. I mean, there was some pools, that showed sign of a struggle. I mean, they weren't just tiny, tiny drops, in this area, but the prosecution is trying to make, they're trying to prove that the violent attack, and this is where I think investigators found, some more of the blood stains and smears on the handrail, bloody fingerprints on the wooden beam, blood on the door and the bolt at the bottom of the stairs. I mean, all you're really showing is this is the way that they ran out the door. I mean, a jury has to think that this kid is capable of murder, by what you're just pointing out, the little piece of a knife. I mean, jury was probably emotionally primed before they ever heard the full story. The problem is the jury was never given, I think, a fair starting point. They were given shock value right off the jump, shock value. And then they're telling them to judge it fairly? Really? That's not justice, man. That's strategy. That's what Riley was putting into this. He was putting all damn strategy. This is the following day in the daylight. Firmino saw what appeared to be small drops of blood on the sidewalk on Hamlet Street, crossing the street and then stopping at the opposite side about halfway down the street at number 20 or 22. DA Riley and Firmino identified 35 photographs of the Downing house in various parts of the rooms on the first floor and cellar. There were additional photographs outside of the house, front and back, as well as an aerial photograph of the neighborhood. All were marked into evidence. The tape of Eddie O'Brien's 911 call to Somerville police about his mugging in Union Square were played for the jury. A photograph of Eddie at the police station that night in his white t-shirt, green shorts, and black sneakers was all introduced. Then the first of the photographs of Downing's body at the autopsy was shown to the jury on the monitors through an overhead projector. George objected to the photograph, but the objection was overruled. Of course it was overruled. You had the judge that you wanted. The autopsy photographs are almost always permitted into evidence, even though they are highly prejudicial because they are so gruesome. But the objection must be made to preserved on appeal. Only the jury was permitted to view this photograph, not the audience. Well, the court date came to a close and the worst time to end for the defense's perspective. The entire day had been taken up with details of the discovery of Janet Downing's body by her 16-year-old son Ryan, the attempts to resuscitate her, photographs of bloody, horrible murder scene. Eddie O'Brien then was introduced into the trial for the first time, and a photograph of him taken the night of the murder was shown to the jury. The day ended with a photograph of the two monitors facing the jury. It showed the deceased woman battered face and neck and 22 slashing wounds across it, ear to ear. Riley showed the jury the blood and gore of the horrific murder and then successfully connected Eddie O'Brien to its jurors, minus the simple introduction of the tape of his 911 call and photograph in the middle of the testimony. That would be all they thought about for the next 17 hours until they returned. Damn. You know, next chapter is the Day of Disasters, chapter 22. You know, thank you everybody for stopping by. You know, give me a minute. I'm gonna rock out with a little bit of music.
Yeah. Them the clique they tried to bury. Yeah. I'm the storm. Yeah. I'm the storm they tried to bottle. The truth they tried to drown. 15 years old, they threw a king's weight on a child's crown. But I rise like a riot, like a siren in the night. And I'm calling out the dude who's been ducking the light. Name's Art Ortiz. Yeah, that fraud. Moving like a shadow puppet pulled by a coward god. Every time the block shake, he the first one to vanish. Moving like guilt, wearing sneakers, sprinting off in the panic. I'm like, why you always running when the truth get loud? Why your footsteps echo different from the rest of the crowd? You slid through the alleys like a rumor with legs. But when the questions start flying, you crack like eggs. I was sitting on the porch, whole hood saw me chilling. You was creeping through the dark like a plot. You was feeling you a ghost with the heartbeat, a whisper with shoes, a silhouette sprinting off, dropping half-baked clues. I spit metaphors heavy, you the fence jumper phantom, the backyard bandit, the night shift random. You the type to leave footprints, but swear you ain't walk. The type to hear your name whispered and pretend you ain't talk. I'm the kid they tried to bury, but I grew like a vine. Truth climbing every wall, exposing every design. You the dude in the shadows, ducking every spotlight beam, moving like a glitch in the neighborhood dream. This ain't an accusation, this a lyrical rig, a metaphor for every grown man who let a child bleed, for every dude who stayed silent while a kid took the fall, for every shadow in the night who ain't stand up at all. So fictional art, so listen, I'm the storm you can't dodge. I'm the truth in the alley, I'm the ghost in the lodge. I'm the voice of the timeline, the pulse of the street, and every lie you ever told get exposed to the beat. So keep running and hiding, but you can't escape. Truth so relentless, tide your facade's gonna break. I'm the storm, I'm the light, I'm the echo, the fight. And when the beat drops down, you're gonna feel me tonight.
truth's gonna bend. Heffernan standing tall, trying to defend. Said it looked bad on paper, but it's all deeper. Politics lurking, call it a grim reaper. Eddie was just a kid, caught in the fray, but the power players had a game to play. From day one, they wanted him to fall. A kid in the spotlight, crushed by it all. Heffernan knew the truth. No, it ain't fair. Politics behind the scenes, no one would care. Guilty or innocent, the verdict was set. Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. Dr. Bonham was chosen, thought he would be right, a face of fairness in that long, dark night. But the DA smiled wide, played both sides slick. Heffernan thought neutral, but maybe that's the trick. Eddie's fate sealed with a stroke of a pen. My ruling was sound, but the world turned again. They needed him guilty to fit their plan, change the laws mid-game. Oh, what a scam! Heffernan knew the truth. No, it ain't fair. Politics behind the scenes, no one would care. Guilty or innocent, the verdict was set. Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. Juvenile court, he should have stayed there. 20 years, not a slap, but no shadows dance in the neon glow. Tales of fear on the evening show. They needed a monster for the 5 o'clock news. A 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a bloodstained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They call him a predator to hide their own lies, but we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. They hid all the palm prints, the DNA strands, put a lifetime of blame on a child's scarred hands. But the science is speaking, the silence is broke. We're tearing the fabric of the web that they spoke. He's grateful and compassionate, steady and true. An innocent man wearing prison cell blue. The system can bend, but it's breaking today. We won't stop shouting till he walks away. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. here. Tired of their stories, tired of the pain. We rise up together, we'll dance in the rain. He's our gentle giant, our shining star. We'll fight till the end, we'll carry him
Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home in the 30-year tear. As the lights dim, we're the promise it'll stay. Our voices will rise, and we will find a way.
Alrighty, everybody. Alrighty then. We are back. We are back with another free Eddie weekend. You know, we don't stop. They go, we don't stop, we won't stop. You know, but free Eddie. You know, you can go to truthabouteddieobrien.com. There's so much on that. There's so much on that website, you know, and all of the state's actual, you know, stuff that the state put out there, all of their own black and white. But the Day of Disasters, chapter 22. We're trying to move through these chapters, you know, hopefully in time when we're just about done, I can have one of the first copies of Margo's book. I'm sure we can arrange that so we can read the first chapter. You know, so we could read the first chapter, you know, to y'all, and then y'all can go buy it. Well, welcome back, everybody. You know, today we're gonna, you know, we're diving into the politics of murder book, you know, and for those just joining us, you know, we're gonna go back and, you know, Margo read the addendum yesterday, you know, down in Cape Cod, you know, so we're gonna check out that video right quick for the ones that have not seen it. You know, so the stuff that keeps popping up on me. Hey, come on.
It's been approximately 10 years since The Politics of Murder was published. Much has happened over those years. Changes in the law, Eddie O'Brien's transfer to medium security at Northeast Correctional Center Institution at Gardner, information received and investigated since the publication in 2016. These changes and developments seem to trickle in, with lengthy periods of inactivity in between. This is the reality of how slowly the justice system moves, especially for inmates who are working on post-conviction appeals, requests for reversal, requests for new trials, and requests for clemency for the convictions. I frequently ask myself whether the needle has moved at all in Eddie's case since the publication of Politics of Murder. Many days I think no. On other days I may we have it, and how much further along the road to getting some relief from his wrongful conviction we are. Those are usually the days when I speak to Eddie on the phone. His patience and determination carried me through the times when the needle seemed stuck. He has not rested a day during these last 10 years. Most of what I present in these new chapters is a direct result of the arduous work and the endless hours Eddie has spent requesting and then combing through the often handwritten notes he received from his Freedom of Information requests. Hundreds of documents he didn't have access to before produced, exposing the shameful corruption and the deliberate errors in the proceedings which unjustly kept him in prison for the last 31 years. We had other help as well. Many readers are familiar with Karen Reed, who was charged with the murder of her boyfriend, a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe. The retrial was held in the Superior Court for Norfolk County in 2025. The first trial ended hung jury. During those two trials, unimaginable prosecutorial were exposed on national television. Similar political collusion and corruption I wrote about 10 years ago was playing out live on television daily, and the viewers were witnessing. Corruption suddenly did not seem as far-fetched as it had in 2015. Unfortunately, yet another person accused of murder was forced to go through a life-altering ordeal that robbed her of her liberty, her reputation, her employment, and cost her millions of dollars to defend herself. Before the second trial, she already owed $5 million in legal fees. Has such enormous and personal resource that scales of justice always have in its favor, no matter what the defendant has. No matter that the defendant has the presumption of innocence. If they cannot pay eye-watering amounts of money for a team of defense attorneys, the best forensic experts, the best scientific labs, then the fight is lauded as David and Goliath. I'll take a $1 million defense fund over the presumption of innocence any day. By the time Karen Reed got to trial, she'd lost that presumption in the press, just as Eddie had. The presumption is not going to win the case if the defendant cannot access funds for investigators, forensic analyses, several lawyers, and expert witnesses needed to properly defend the case. With funds to hire a small army necessary, at least the defendant has a fighting chance. The presumption of innocence can also not fight the blue code of silence of the police or the collusion among many state offices that participated in Karen Reed's prosecution, or should I say persecution. What we all saw in that courtroom was what most people could not see in 15-year-old Eddie O'Brien's courtroom. None of us were ready for that in 1995. Scores of bloggers and podcasters championed Karen Reed's cause and supported her with fundraisers and marches. A whole subculture of groups in the innocence, wrongful conviction, and police anti-corruption world joined forces and raised the consciousness of the public to the point where the debacle that was unfolding was undeniable. Without such overwhelming support, I doubt she would have prevailed. One of those podcasts turned its attention to Eddie O'Brien's case when the Karen Reed trial was over. That is when the landscape changed for Eddie. We were introduced to a large community of people who understood what had happened to him. It started with one woman in the community posting a photo of the Politics of Murder, which is in the room today, on her Facebook page with the comment, "If you thought the Karen Reed case was corrupt, you've got to read this book." A podcast picked that up and began researching the case. They live streamed 38 episodes of their show about Eddie O'Brien. A wealth of new information came out of those sessions. That information alone informed investigations into other possible suspects. On a personal note, I was finally able to accept in my own legally trained mind that the collusion and corruption went even further than just incompetence with a smattering of obfuscation. I now firmly believe that this was a coordinated and carefully executed plan to convict an innocent young boy for a horrible murder for the sole purpose of advancing personal and political gains. I also believe that the police and prosecutors knew that Eddie did not brutally murder Janet Downing. They intentionally refused to look at any evidence that pointed to any other possible suspect. They intentionally withheld exculpatory evidence critical to Eddie's claim of innocence, and they fabricated incriminating evidence to convict him. This is in this addendum to the politics of murder. I'm going to show you how.
I have it on disc. I can't be brought.
That was Margo Nash. Excuse me. That was Margo Nash, reading the politics of murder addendum. 10 extra chapters are going to be out there. So that's pretty exciting, right? 10 extra chapters. Yo, what's up with that? So we're going to break down, a couple of days ago, I was over in JFK's chat, and JFK was saying how we were doing a deep dive in the Eddie O'Brien case, and shout out for that. I appreciate that. And, telling people to come over, and watch it. And I appreciate that too, because I think the more sunlight we put on this case, right, the more the lies are starting to melt. Now I say that because something came up while I was in the chat, and it ties into something that we talked about on last weekend's stream, something straight from Trisha O'Brien herself. A lot of people say they have trouble getting by the jumping story. It's hard to get to believe that Eddie was jumped. But yeah, a group of boys jumped him, and like any kid who got blindsided, had a hard time getting by that story emotionally. That's normal. That's human. That's teenagers in the 90s. But the part that tells you everything I think you need to know about Eddie O'Brien's character is he wasn't even sure who did it. And when the private investigator, when they tracked down the boys that allegedly did it, Eddie refused to point out the wrong people. Imagine that. Like, he's sitting up there doing LWOP, and he didn't want to point out the wrong people. That just says a lot about his character, because a lot of people in his situation were kind of like, shit, whatever's clever, man. Yup, that's them. Just to help their case and get the hell out of that joint. So now we know that the jumping story really, really happened. Because, they tracked down the two guys, and Eddie was the one that didn't want to falsely identify anybody, even if they knew that was the two boys. This is a 15-year-old kid who just got jumped, right? Probably scared, embarrassed, hurt, and plus what already went on that night. Yeah, it's a little crazy. It's a little crazy that someone could have that much bad luck, but it's not impossible. I'm not going to blame someone unless I'm sure. That's not the behavior of a violent kid, right? That's not the behavior of a super predator, whatever the hell a super predator is. That's the behavior of a damn kid with a friggin' conscience. And I think that is who Eddie O'Brien is. You know, that's who Eddie O'Brien is. You know, he showed us who he was. You know, I think that said a lot. I know what happened to Eddie, so I was glad it was true to the no says, told you so. Absolutely. I read somewhere that Ryan was eventually driven by police to his aunt and uncle's house where his aunt, Janet's sister Carol, and his uncle Adi Ortiz lived. Amazing. You know, someone in the projects once said that they lived across the street from Carol and Adi, and Carol was fighting with him, saying, "You killed my sister, you piece of shit." Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just vision Hoffett projects in Providence, you know, a place that could happen. But the day of disasters, you know, we're gonna break this down. This next chapter, chapter 22. You know, the cops are moving in on Eddie. You know, you got James Stafford. He walks into the picture like this dude already solved the damn case. You know what I mean? Eddie's not treated like a scared teenager at this point, you know. He's treated like a suspect from the jump. They totally tried to play his parents in the hospital. No compassion, no patience. They didn't have no attempt to understand. You know, I mean, they really didn't know what he had just witnessed, but like understand the situation, have some compassion. It's a 15-year-old kid. Nope. Like they're checking off boxes, you know. So Eddie's dad explained how they was taking a ride, going to get sneakers, and then he gets pulled over by a Somerville cop, and he said, "Hey, they want you to go to the police station." Like, so you pull over a kid that must have been a bolo, right? Be on the lookout for father and son, suspicion of first degree murder, right? So when you pull them over, can you ask them if they could please come to the police station? That don't sound right, right? You would think they roll up on them, guns out, freeze, get out the car, move out, you know, all kinds of crazy stuff. You would think that's how it would have went down. No? I don't know where all my damn boxes are. There we go. That's a little better. You would think that's how it went down. But here's where it gets crazy, right? They start photographing Eddie. You know what I mean? Taking samples, swabbing them, all before they even know what was happening. I mean, this wasn't really, let's figure out what really went on here. You know, like this wasn't like let's build a case. You know, they were collecting evidence as if Eddie was the killer already. You know what I mean? Eddie's sitting there scared, he's confused, he's alone, and instead of asking what he saw, what'd you see, kid? You know what I mean? What'd you hear? What do you remember? Do you know anything? You know, no, we're just gonna stop pushing a narrative right away. You know, which that was totally, totally crazy. But yeah, so Eddie's scared, he's confused, and instead of asking, you know, some simple questions, they want to start getting into the mugging. You know, they're basically asking questions designed to trap Eddie, you know, not to try to understand. It was a setup, not an interview. You know, so let's get into this right now.
Exculpatory truths left on the shelf. Margo Nash revealing the stealth. Turning pages, the story unfolds. The politics of murder, a truth bold and in every corner. The whispers of doubt, a system that's rigged. Can't we just shout? Behind those bars, he's waited too long. An innocent heart, where does he belong? Oh, Eddie, hold on tight. We're dancing for the truth tonight. Break the chains, let the world see. Your voice is strong, it's time to be free. Justice for Eddie, justice for all. We'll rise together, we'll never fall. Reevaluate, we're raising the stakes. Time to uncover the truth for justice's sake. No more suppression, let the voices ring. Together we rise, it's a hell of a thing. We'll sign the petition, take back the night. Fighting for Eddie, we'll win this fight. Oh, Eddie, hold on tight. We're dancing for the truth tonight. Break the chains, let the world see. Your voice is strong, it's time to be free. Justice for Eddie, justice for all. We'll rise together, we'll never fall. More than half a life in a crowded cage, but hope knows no bounds. It's never too late. Hear the rhythm, feel the beat. Justice is coming, can't accept defeat. No more shadows, let the truth shine bright. Eddie O'Brien, ready for the fight. So let's light the way with our hearts ablaze. Dancing for justice, we're entering a new phase. Sign for Eddie, let the world know. We're standing together, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about a kid, only 15 years. Eddie O'Brien, caught in the gears. Political pawns, they played their game. Power and money all in his name. But was tight with will, no simple fate. Climbed the ladder, sealed Eddie's state. Wayne but a prosecutor with a purpose. In the court of politics, none could touch us. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped their destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they break. since youth. Built a law firm, they spun the truth. When Riley took the case, he was never alone. Built on foundations, powerfully grown. With the Budwell Network, they made a show. Charlie Baker in the mix, he's part of the flow. All linked together, climbing the heights. On Eddie's back, they rose to new sights. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped their destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they break. Kimberly Budd, her name now in lights. Chief Justice of the court in the highest of fights. Calls Riley godfather, mentor, uncle too. Let that sink in deep. Betty's pain paved through. Judge Heffernan ruled fair, you played your part. But the pressure came down like a storm in the dark. It wasn't about truth, wasn't about rights. It was all about power and their political heights. This ain't just a story, it's a legacy. Eddie was the stone that shaped their destiny. With every connection, every hand they shake, Eddie's case became the ground they break. Eddie got used by a system so cruel. A pawn on the chessboard, they played him as a fool. So remember his name, let it echo, let it be. Free Eddie till it's backwards. Fight for the right you see. Can we keep it real timeless? Let the truth ignite. We don't bend, we don't break. We will stand for the light.
That's right, free Eddie, man. We don't bend, we don't break. You know, it's free Eddie until it's backwards. It can't be anything else. Shout out for the 10 gifted Can We Keep It Real page memberships. You know, Night Shift Nomad. Shout out to Night Shift Nomad. You know, definitely somebody that's free Eddie. You know, D. Ellie, you know, another free Eddie. You know, April Zatino, at Anna 12. You know, shout out to everybody that got a gifted membership, man. But what's going on, yo? We're here going over Margo Nash's book, The System, you know, that did crazy things to expose Eddie O'Brien. I mean, did crazy things to jam up Eddie O'Brien. But Margo Nash is going to show you how the prosecution gets exposed, how these narratives stop wobbling. You know what I mean? But you know how when somebody lies, right, they have to keep adding more lies and more lies to support the first lies. It's like building a house of cards on a windy day. Eventually, something's going to fall, right? And that's what this chapter exposes. You know, I think Margo does a great job, and I can't wait for the other 10 chapters to drop. I mean, Margo's going to walk us through the contradictions, the inconsistencies of, shit, we forgot to mention that. You know, it's the legal equivalent of probably watching someone try to patch a sinking boat with duct tape. But let's get back into this, the days of disaster. You know, this is when Sergeant James Stanford was the officer who did the protective sweep of the top 2 floors at the Downing crime scene. You know, and they did that shit a little late. Somebody could have came down and got the drop on everybody. Because what time did they eventually do that protective sweep? We already know the crime scene was contaminated by now. Everybody that was in and out, civilians, cops, rescue workers, you know, everybody in and out. You know, the first cop comes in, sees the water running, sees blood everywhere. But at 12:05 that night, he was ordered to Somerville Hospital to interview Eddie O'Brien regarding his mugging at Union Square. Trooper Joseph Duggan of the DA CPAC unit arrived shortly thereafter as well. Stanford was called to the witness stand to testify about that and the interrogation of Eddie at the Somerville police station after Eddie was treated at the hospital. While at the hospital, Stanford testified that Eddie conferred for a minute or two with his Uncle Doc, Richard Daly, who was married to Eddie's maternal Aunt Mary and father, agreed to talk to Stanford and Duggan. Stanford requested that the blood swabs be taken from each of Eddie's shins and was permitted to do so. Both Ed and Eddie believed this to be in furtherance of the investigation of the mugging in Union Square. A dried drop of blood on Eddie's right shin would match later to be identified as type AB, consistent with Downing's blood type. Otherwise, nothing else collected from Eddie that night, including his sneakers, his shorts, underwear, his t-shirt, provided any blood evidence. How was that? That's impossible. That is totally impossible that Eddie's clothes had no blood on them after what they're saying Eddie did to Janet. 98 times. Blair walked in. He tried to touch the carotid artery. That shit lashed open. "98 total wounds. Eddie had no blood on him at all. The man that you're saying is doing this crime. Because the minute you accuse him of a suspect, he goes from boy to man." Eddie was wearing an above the rim white t-shirt, inside out. It's the same t-shirt that Michelle Cameron described him wearing at 8:30 when she, Paul, Jeannie, and Raquel left for Revere Beach. The same one. He had been wearing the t-shirt inside out all day long. After they photographed his legs and hands, front and back, Eddie was questioned in a detective conference room. Present in the room were his father, Stanford, Duggan, and police captain Robert Bradley. Neither the captain nor the district attorney's CPAC unit had ever been involved in questioning a mugging victim before. Any doubt that Eddie was a murder suspect disappeared when, prior to questioning, they presented him with a juvenile Miranda waiver from outlining the constitutional rights of a person over 14 but under 17 years of age, showing that he was a victim. Victims of crimes aren't asked to sign Miranda waivers, only suspects are. What do y'all think of that at this point? Eddie's in the hospital. He's being questioned by the captain of the damn police. Absolutely right, Freebird. Anybody ever watch Dexter? Come on, Dexter would show you that. He was a blood analyst. But you got Duggan, from the DA's office. He's there. Members of the CPAC units there. Captain Bradley's there. Stanford's there. I mean, you got them all. That's like having McCoy, Benson, all of them, even though they're probably on different shows. All in the room. I mean, when we're done with this, we're going to show you that evidence contradicts the state's theory. Witness statements that just don't line up. The scientific facts that the prosecution pretended don't exist in this case. And I can't believe that this case was held together with political glue, not the friggin' truth. I mean, how are people not saying, how did this even make it to trial? There's so much reasonable doubt in this case. How did it even make this shit to trial? So, Duggan from the DA's office presented a consent form to the O'Briens that permitted the collection of clothes, photographs, fingerprints, and blood from Eddie. Stanford testified that Eddie signed this form voluntarily after his father, Edward O'Brien, filled it in. Eddie's clothes were collected. He was fingerprinted and photographed, and the interview began at 2:40 a.m. The blood had already been removed from his shin. The consent was signed 2 hours later. At this point, Eddie's father was removed to a separate room to be interviewed. Big Ed, what'd you think at this point? Did you, this is it, like you must have started to think by now that, wait a minute, something's not right here. And Eddie's mother and Uncle Doc came in to be with Eddie during the questioning. Stanford testified that Eddie recounted his day, estimating times as best he could. Eddie arrived at Ryan's house. The groceries were already in the house. Big shout out to Forever Jaded. Welcome. Eddie arrived at Ryan's house. The groceries were already in the house. He didn't help bring them in. He and Joey Dion went into the den at Ryan's house to play a video game, but Ryan's mom was sleeping on the couch, and they left. He went into the kitchen with the other boys just hanging out. They all left at the same time. Eddie went home. Eddie told the police he was on his porch when he saw Paul go into the Downing house for 10 to 15 minutes, which Paul left with Jeannie O'Brien and two other girls for Revere Beach. Eddie said he went down Boston Street to Burger King. It was busy and the food upset his stomach, so he left to go to Jimmy's, another food establishment in Union Square. He told them about the mugging that happened on his way down Somerville Ave. Eddie said he never returned to the Downing home after he left with everyone else early that night. When asked if he'd been in the thickets behind the Downing home, he said, "I don't go back there anymore." He explained that after he left the house, he had not seen Ryan Downing, Joey Dion, or Chris Ford again. On cross-examination, it was clear that Stanford had never seen the hilt of a knife as he went up and down the stairs doing his protective sweeps of the home's second floor and attic. Nor was he told there was a piece of metal or a hilt on the stairs to be cautious about. He was directed to the left side of the stairs because there was blood on the right side. So the detective was never told that there is a piece of evidence on the stairs, the hilt of the knife. I find that hard to believe. I mean, people, this was 1996. I mean, it wasn't like 1962. This was 96. I mean, 96, like, they knew what they were doing in 96, like, it wasn't, I mean, policing wasn't just invented. They just didn't start it in 96. George questioned Stanford in the same incredulous tone he would use with all the police officers about their failure to put on protective gloves, shoe coverings, or other gear at the crime scene. In addition, Stanford had placed 2 vials containing Eddie's shin swabs into his upper uniform pocket instead of an evidence envelope. That's suspicious right there. Clip that. That is major suspicious. So he puts the swabs inside the vial in his shirt pocket. He puts the vials in his upper shirt pocket. Sorry about that. So they put the vial in their pocket. um, instead of an evidence envelope. He bagged Eddie's clothes and shoes with his bare hands and brought all of these items back to the crime scene to turn over to Robert Pino. Boy, that Pino name. And not only that, who's this sound like, about the evidence? Sound a lot like Michael Proctor, that racist son of a bitch. The forensic chemist who would test everything at the state police crime lab. The possibility of contamination was repeatedly suggested to the jury. However, George lacked any evidence of contamination to support his theory, nor was he able to point to any specific questionable pieces of evidence. As a mere possibility, it carried little weight with the jurors. Diane Roberta, the nurse who cared for Eddie at the hospital, who swabbed his shin, described Eddie as calm during the entire procedure, including when the police were in the room with him. He observed no one in the room behaving in an emotional way. She saw Eddie, his father, and his uncle at 11:35 p.m. That's right. Some shit goes in the evidence bag and other shit goes in the pocket. On July 23rd, when he first came in, she did not notice any injuries to his arms and legs, just the cuts to his right hand. Eddie brought her attention to his other abrasions on his leg. She cleaned his right hand with saline, but didn't clean his legs or other areas. There was not much blood or anything on his shin. Before the next witness, Trooper David Otto, took the stand, George was at sidebar to object to the omission of two important pieces of evidence. A Boston Herald, here we go with the Boston Herald shit again, a Boston Herald newspaper, and the red penknife allegedly found in the garbage can. Now, this is the same penknife that was found in the garbage can that they planted in the garbage can. They planted it in the garbage can. We talked about that a couple of chapters ago. It was Otto who found the red-handed knife in the trash behind the O'Brien's home. The fact that Police Sergeant Farley reported had said that the red knife was found in Eddie's bedroom and not the trash totally escaped George. Imagine that you get $150,000, and how does that escape you? Because he was unaware of Farley's report, he didn't challenge the location the knife was actually found, and that location was the critical issue. It provided the consciousness of guilt the prosecution so desperately needed. So George conceded the red knife, but challenged the omission into evidence of the two bayonets and other black penknife found in Eddie's room, which had no connection to the murder. The judge agreed with him, to which George responded, "Oh, wow." George seemed unaware this was a Pyrrhic victory for the defense. The red knife was the problem, not these war relics and black penknives. Would it have been better to allow those weapons into evidence in order to suggest to the jury that Eddie had a far more effective weapon to choose from if he intended to kill someone? This was a strategic decision that another attorney might have made differently, of course. I think Margo says when she was reading the addendum, she found out about the penknife was actually found on the floor and not in the trash can. I need to run and get a drink because I'm getting a little damn dehydrated here. So if you don't mind, give me a quick minute.
Just a boy from Somerville with stars in his eyes, caught up in a game where the truth often dies. They said they'd keep it fair, but it was all a charade. Politics ran the case, and justice betrayed. They pointed fingers at Eddie, just a kid with a dream, in a world that judged him harshly, tearing apart at the seams. Oh, Eddie, they sacrificed you to make it look right in a broken system where darkness swallows the light. With your spirit they played, just a pawn on their board. In the echoing silence, your name became a sword. Bottom was pressured, he folded under the weight. The DA was showboating, sealing Eddie's fate. They changed all the laws to fit their own design, removing the judge who sought a justice divine. A white boy from Somerville, caught in a cruel twist, while they painted him as danger, stealing heaven in their midst. Oh, Eddie, they sacrificed you to make it look right in a broken system where darkness swallows the light. With your spirit they played. In the shadows of a house where the whispers play, the door of the frame holds the secrets of the day. Locked on to Eddie, they whispered his name. Caught in a tempest, a life gone insane. Down in the dark where the cellar path runs, a set of keys hit the dirt under disappearing suns. A house key, a car key, lost in the rush, but the state swept it up like a hand in the crush. Eddie's freedom cry, can you hear it loud? Breaking through the darkness, piercing the shroud. 30 years in chains, but the truth won't die. Unseal the past, let Eddie rise high. Unseal the notes, expose all the blocks. Rayleigh trapped Eddie in a manufactured box. 30 years of hidden facts, buried in the track. It is time to give Eddie O'Brien his freedom back. Unseal the box, break down the lock. Let the truth ring louder than the courthouse clock. 3 decades of silence, a cold prison shell. Refuse to lie, they cast a wicked
turned its back on the human race. All they cared about was filling up the beds. Didn't matter who they grabbed, just fill up the spread. They took the innocent kids, tossed them aside. Evidence was trash, it was a twisted ride. Bodies in the system, just numbers on a page. The system didn't care about the pain or the rage. Now look around, see the streets in despair. Families breaking apart, chaos in the air. Wonder why the youth are lost in the haze. A puppet show of lives caught in a cruel maze. Stand-up dudes taking the order they kept, left the neighborhood shattered, families wept. Addicts in the alleys, shadows of the past. We're stuck in the cycle, feeling outclassed. Why do the corners look like a zombie show? It's by design, we all know it, don't you know? It didn't happen by accident, it was all planned. The system made it happen, they had the upper hand. In the chaos in the night, there's a deeper truth. A kid named Eddie O'Brien, lost in his youth. 15 years strong, thrown in a ruthless game. A machine built to crush, no mercy, just shame. Politics and fear, the media spins their lies. Eddie stood no chance, neath the soulless skies. Now look around, see the streets in despair. Families breaking apart, chaos in the air. Wonder why the youth are lost in the haze. A puppet show of lives caught in a cruel maze. But Eddie's not just a name in a fading light. He's a face of a struggle. He'll put up a fight with the truth in his heart. He'll rise from the ground. Voices in the shadows, together we're found. So listen closely. The story ain't done.
Oh yeah, free Eddie, man. Free Eddie till it's backwards. Absolutely. The cops manufactured the forensic evidence themselves through gross negligence.
United as a team.
Absolutely, man. We are back. We back. I had to go get a drink. I was dehydrated. Hey, when will the new movie come out, right? Let's go. You know, I was a little hydrated and stuff, so but yeah, welcome back, man. You know, we're breaking down, I think, one of the dirtiest plays the prosecution played in the Eddie O'Brien case, right? And it all probably starts with a newspaper. Yep, a newspaper. I mean, the headline that actually poisoned the freaking room. You know, so here's what went down, right? The cops take a picture inside Eddie's bedroom, right? On top of his dresser, there's a Boston Herald newspaper, right? The front page reads, "We're natural born killers." Now listen, that headline had nothing to do with Eddie, right? It wasn't about him. It wasn't about the case. That shit wasn't even connected to anything at all. Not anything to do with Eddie O'Brien, but the dirty ass district attorney, right? He wanted that headline in front of the jury, not the photo, right? He could care less about the photo. He wanted the actual front page as big so the jurors could read it during deliberations. That's not evidence. He's now trying to play a psychological war. Right? Now, George, he drops the ball totally. Like, he's a freaking moron. You know what I mean? He drops the ball. He tries to fight it. He says the paper was staged, propped up by someone in the search team. Right? So let's read The newspaper in question, the Boston Herald, dated June 27, photographed on top of the dresser in Eddie's bedroom. The district attorney wanted to introduce not only the photograph, but the front page of the Herald. The front page had the headline, "We're Natural Born Killers." It was highly inflammatory and prejudicial. Riley wanted the jurors to have the actual front page so they could read the article during deliberations. The photo was too small for them to see it clearly. George wanted it excluded because he said the paper was staged by being propped up by the Bureau by another one of the search party or the photographer. What George did not argue was that the front page Riley was offering wasn't the item depicted in the photograph. The police never seized the actual newspaper, and this violated two rules of evidence, allowing for the exclusion of this document. George didn't argue this, as is soon painfully apparent, because he didn't know it wasn't the actual newspaper from the bedroom. Neither the warrant authorizing the seizure nor the return of the warrant listed a newspaper as being seized from the house. George had all of these documents for the past 2 years. He's so unfamiliar with these, produced a cross-examination that was frustrating and made no sense at all. This was such a critical error, set off a series of evidentiary explosions, which eventually followed the jury to be exposed to evidence that they never ever should have. David Otter was sworn in very late in the day. He'd been a trooper for 10 years at the time of the crime and was assigned to the Middlesex District Attorney's Office. Otto was sent with 5 other officers, some from Somerville PD and some from the state police, to the O'Brien's house to execute a search warrant on July 25th, while Ed and Tricia was with their 15-year-old son at the police station as he was arrested. And we're going to talk to Aunt Jerry, who was actually at the home during this raid. She was there. Yep. Shout out to Aunt Jerry. Yeah, we're going to talk. I appreciate that. All of the evidence and none of it was used properly. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. Which Otto said he first noticed in Eddie's bedroom, which he described as being in disarray, was the front page of the Boston Herald on top of the bureau with the headline, "We're Natural Born Killers." The judge immediately instructed the jury that they could only consider this evidence on the issue of the defendant's state of mind at the time of this particular incident, and that the only bias upon which you can consider it only on a limited basis. The judge then added what is intended to be instruction limited the scope of the evidence. If you, in fact, of course, find that the photograph depicts which actually happened there, this is depicted in the photograph, all right. Not only is this instruction incomplete and confusing, it contradicts his instruction that it only be considered in terms of Eddie's state of mind. Like, these juries even know what he was talking about. They were like, okay, yep. And they all kind of shrugged their shoulders like, I have no idea what he just said. Now, Riley offered only page 1 of the paper as an exhibit, and it was allowed into evidence over George's objection. The judge had previously instructed Riley to cut off the last page, which was attached to page 1. The judge then permitted Otto to read the article into the record. As they changed out of their bloody clothes, the men who plunged a knife into an elderly Avon man 27 times bragged that they were natural-born killers. Norfolk County prosecutors said yesterday, "Haven't you ever seen natural-born killers before?" Suspect Patrick Moss allegedly bragged to a girl after the gruesome slaying of 65-year-old Philip Miskinnis. The chilling details of the trio's murderous attack and the fascination with the murder spree depicted in the motion picture Natural Born Killers was revealed yesterday when Moss 18 and Leonard Stanley 20. That's all the article on the page. Bob George immediately stood up and asked to present a motion for a mistrial as sidebar. It was denied. Riley continued his examination, moving to the search of the trash and Otto's discovery of the red knife. Otto testified that he picked up an object that was wrapped in a paper towel, and it was heavy and it was kind of hard. So I unrolled it, and there was a knife inside. When George finally got to cross-examine Otto, or it's probably Adi, it was by happenstance that he discovered that the front page of the newspaper that was offered into evidence was not actually seized by the police from Eddie's room during the search. He had Adi identify another photograph appearing to show the whole newspaper on Eddie's dresser. The officer agreed. The whole newspaper appeared to be there. During his questioning, Adi told George twice that he'd never recovered or seized the actual newspaper itself. Whether it was the first page or the whole newspaper, nonetheless, George pressed on as if Adi had never spoken. Question: could you tell this jury where the rest of that newspaper is? Answer: we didn't. We didn't take any of the newspaper. You only brought the front page in? Answer: we didn't even take that. We just took the picture. Question: well, you have read the Boston Herald before, haven't you? The jurors had to wonder what was going on here. Adi kept telling him the exhibit was not from Eddie's bedroom. Let me look up something. Oh. And George just ignored him and continued to question him about what might have been in the paper that day. What other stories might have been covered? Sports stories, weather, human interest stories. He seemed to not understand that he should move to exclude the exhibit because it had nothing to do with Eddie's room or the search. George moved two more pictures into evidence before the judge again interrupted and asked to see counsel as sidebar. Okay, Judge, I move to strike that exhibit, Your Honor. Judge McDaniels. Well, I thought that was something seized from the home. That's the only reason I allowed it to be offered into evidence. George, so did I, Your Honor. Riley, he never said that, Your Honor. He said that he never took it. He never took anything from that room. The warrant didn't authorize it. It was the same front page, different edition. McDaniels, I didn't hear that. I understood it to be that he took that page. That page was propped up there like that. And that's why I allowed it in. I never got that understanding. George asked the judge to strike the exhibit right away and give the jury an instruction about it before the jury left for the weekend. No, Judge McDaniels responded. I will do it on Monday. Oh my God, it will come out the same way. Imagine that. I will do it on Monday. I ain't going to tell him that right now. That's crazy. Because he didn't want the jury to have that on their mind all weekend long. The testimony here was so confusing and it was so obvious that George did not understand the evidence and was not listening to the witness answers. The jury must have been left with a who is on first and who is on second. So friggin' confused. So that's what I got out of it. I was like, what? It was essential that the judge clarify his own misunderstanding to the jury, but George didn't assist it be done. This is what $150,000 lawyer got the O'Briens, and they said he came a great recommendation. Oh no, it's not easy, not at all. This book actually gives me a big break. It's not easy at all, but we got some shit coming up this week. We're going to talk about it. Well, I think that's all I could be reading for now, man. You know, I'm about read out. You know, that was up to chapter 22. I would hope everybody would go get the book, or at least go pre-order the new book. Or if you really want to support Margo Nash, right, go get the book, right, and then pre-order the next book just to support, right? But I'm so glad we have the book. Absolutely. How can anybody understand this? Especially a jury. You know, you got a case, right? That was never about what happened, never about the damn truth. You know, the case was never about the truth at all. It's about Adi was there. You know, it was politics dressed up as justice, man. You know, probably a script written long before Eddie ever stepped into that courtroom. I think that's what chapter 22, you know, what I seen out of it, the manipulation, the ambition, all the shortcuts. Yes, exactly. The jury needed me to break it down for them. That's what you need to do. That's why, like, I try to break stuff down so everybody can understand it. That's why people have trouble in school. Everybody don't understand the same way. You have to break stuff down so the average person can understand it. You know, but this is a great book so far, you know. Margo's done a great job putting this all together. You know, give me a minute. I'll be right back. You all know the routine. You all know the routine. Give me a minute. Be right back.
Where the whispers play, the door of the frame holds the secrets of the day. Locked on to Eddie, they whispered his name. Caught in a tempest, a life gone insane. Down in the dark, where the sailor path runs, a set of keys hit the dirt under disappearing suns. A house key, a car key, lost in the rush. But the state swept it up like a hand in the crush. Eddie's freedom cry, can you hear it loud? Breaking through the darkness, piercing the shroud. 30 years in chains, but the truth won't die. Unseal the past, let Eddie rise high. Unseal the notes, expose all the blocks. Rayleigh trapped Eddie in a manufactured box. 30 years of hidden facts buried in the track. It is time to give Eddie O'Brien his freedom back. Unseal the box, break down the lock. Let the truth ring louder than the courthouse clock. 3 decades of silence, a cold prison shell. Refuse to lie, they cast a wicked spell. No remorse in their eyes, they judge from the booth. But Eddie stands tall, anchored in truth. Summer is opening, the science is real. The manufactured box begins to peel. Voices collide as hope takes its stand. With every heartbeat echoes a drowning band. Eddie's freedom cry, can you hear it loud? Breaking through the darkness, piercing the shroud. 30 years in chains, but the truth won't die. Unseal the past, let Eddie rise The drums roll thunder through the halls of despair. With strings and brass, they unite in the air. A symphony of chaos reflects in the night. The fight for Eddie grows bigger, takes flight. Beneath boundless skies, the walls start to shake. Each note of resistance, a wave in the wake. A revolution of honesty will cut through the lies. As the world turns its gaze, a new dawn will rise. So gather the voices who waited too long for Eddie O'Brien. We'll sing out strong. His freedom's a fire, lighting up the gloom. As the massive, triumphant
Yo, that's one song I gotta play till the end. That is a jam. Shout out to Freebird, man, for the inspiration right there. You know, we got another 10 gifted memberships. Yo, we just keep stacking them up. As people come in, we roll them down. You're going to get a gifted membership. Everyone in the chat is green or blue. Blue because they rock with us big time, and they got the wrenches to crack people over the head with. Just, you know, not literally. You already know. You know, we got our snipers in there, man. But, you know, as I look at the Eddie O'Brien case, man, when the state has experts and Eddie has none, you know, because if you want to understand, man, and I said this the other day, you want to understand how wrongful convictions happen. This is how they happen, not in theory, but in real life. You got to understand what happens when the defense walks into a courtroom with no game plan, when the defense has this case for 2 years and they don't do nothing to prepare for it. Nothing to prepare for it. I could probably come up with opening and closing statements in about a half hour on this case, and they'd be better than Bob George, I bet. But Eddie O'Brien, this kid walked into a courtroom with nothing, and he paid $150,000. Not one forensic scientist. No, where's the blood pattern analysis? Where's the crime scene reconstructionist? Like, where are these people? Where's the juvenile development specialist? Like, you know, who'd you have? Where was the specialist? How come this guy was broke? The state walked in with the full buffet. They had all kinds of money, right? They had experts that the jury trusts because they're experts, right? They're not going to lie. Like, yeah, where's your expert? I mean, this is how wrongful convictions are started. It's shit like this. You know, it's stuff, the junk ass science, the unreliable testimony, just the systematic misconduct that goes on in mostly every courtroom across the damn nation. They get happy when the defense has no one qualified to challenge them. And Bob George, he had nobody to challenge them because he enjoyed that money. Oh, I got no money. I need another $1.50. Well, we don't have another $1.50, buddy. So now you have no expert, you're telling us, right? So now the prosecution, oh, this is a walk in the park now for Riley. This is slam dunk. It's over. It's over before it began. And the state says that the blood splatter means guilt. The defense has nobody to challenge that. So the guilt becomes what now? It becomes, you know, a conclusion of it becomes science. The states are going to say that the wounds match their theory. And guess what? The defense has no expert to challenge that. What do you expect? So whatever the prosecution says, the defense has nobody to challenge that. Yep, they went through. But what happens is everybody was gifted memberships today. So as people come in, Oxy, they're gonna get a gifted membership. So even if it goes over to the replay, they'll still get the gifted membership. I seen this happen last weekend. You know, Freebird gifted some memberships, and as people were coming in, they'll all get them. You know, they'll get them. But everybody kind of hooked it up with gifted memberships today. Yeah, everyone hit the like button. Really appreciate that, you know, as we break this down. But Eddie's case was full of contradictions. You know, a lot of evidence that wasn't disclosed. You know, how about alternative suspects? They didn't even look into that. physical evidence that didn't match the Amatol test. You guys ordered it. You guys paid for that shit, but it couldn't get in. We couldn't use it in opening statements. I mean, that's not evidence, right? The contradictions never get exposed. No. And the thing is that most juries, they're going to trust the expert more than they trust a lawyer. I mean, nobody trusts a lawyer. You know, that's not a trial. They put on a performance. And the crazy shit is, right? Juveniles are the most vulnerable and the least protected in this system. How many kids are wrongly convicted, right? And it often involves young incarcerated kids, you know, coerced, suppressed evidence. That's a fact that they have on court.net, you know. A child cannot defend himself against junk science. How do you do it? A child can't cross-examine a forensic analysis. A child can't explain, you know, the limitations. That's what experts are for. But when the defense comes into the case with no experts or very little, that don't help. So the truth never makes it into the courtroom. So Eddie walks in. The state walks in with power, with resources, with money. You're welcome. No, thank you. I really appreciate you. Yep. I appreciate everything. Thank you. Yes, and Eddie educated himself and used his mind, and as he should. You know, you got number time on your hands. Shout out to Natalie D. What's going on? Welcome. You know, definitely unlock them gifted memberships. There's a free gifted membership sitting there for you. So make sure your gifted memberships are unlocked and you'll get a free gifted membership right now. So prayers every night for the O'Brien family. Absolutely. So go back and, you know, unlock them gifted memberships. You know, but the same system opens your doors. You know, when the scales are uneven, it convicted him as well. And not because the evidence proved guilt, because the evidence didn't prove guilt. There's someone's DNA there under them fingernails. Yo, give me 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Innocence shattered in a world so torn. They said it was fear reopening the doors, filled with whispers behind closed floors. A white boy convicted made it look fair, but in the shadow of justice the truth laid bare. Eddie was a name, but just a pawn in the game. Sacrificed and railroaded, nothing felt the same. Oh, just a boy from Somerville. They played with his life as if it was a thrill. The DA showboating, just trying to amass. The system wanted justice, but justice was blind, changing the laws, leaving truth far behind. Remove the judge who dared to be just. Eddie was demonized in the world's cruel thrust. Size mattered not when politics run deep. From day one he fought, but all they did was sweep. Oh, just a boy from Somerville, they played with his life as if it was a thrill. Politics and pressure, shadows at play, innocent hearts lost in this twisted ballet. And those inside knew the story was wrong. We could have done better, sang the old wrong song. Experts pressure to twist the truth, arm in the court of despair. There was no charm, he never stood a chance. From the very start, a tragic confession, a broken heart. Watch Eddie's face when the world turned cold. An innocent spirit caught in a tale retold. The system failed him, that much is clear. A boy from Somerville, lost in his fear. Yet in the ashes, his story remains of the justice betrayed and the bitter pains. Through the lens of history, we sing his plight. Remember the boy who stood up to the night. Just a boy from Somerville, they played with his life as if it was a thrill. Politics and pressure, shadows at play, innocent hearts lost in this twisted ballet. So let's tell this story, raise voices, unite. For every Eddie, let's stand up and fight. Just a boy from Somerville, forever will stand in the heart of the people. His truth in our hands.
All right, man, we back. I appreciate everybody today for sure. You know, I just want to say that, at this point, and like I said before, it don't even matter. I think it don't even matter what they said back then. We're getting into a Rule 30 motion, at the end of the month. So what hearing should have looked like back then, what evidence should have been disclosed, Eddie got screwed, and that's the bottom line. What experts they should have hired, man, the justice that should have been served, but that chapter's written, right? It's over. He did his 30 years. Now the question is simple, right? What do we do now? And I said this before. But we can't let this story die, right? Because, this chat, the conversation is going to wake up call, man. We're talking about it here. Shout out to JFK, because I said many times, if it wasn't for that channel, man, we wouldn't be talking about this. So shout out to you guys over there. And, You know, if you need to get caught up, there's like 40-something chapters that he did. I'm gonna be real with you though. Something in me, I thought I lost, and I think this Eddie O'Brien shit just gave me a reason to come back and talk to the people. Reason to stand up again, you know, reason to fight with a friggin', you know, have a reason to fight, you know, instead of just be driving yourself crazy all day, you know, have a reason to do shit. But Eddie O'Brien, that dude, he's sitting in the joint. You know what I mean? Not forgotten by us, but forgotten by the system that failed him, man. A 15-year-old boy. That's some bullshit. You know what I mean? And, like, come on now. To do this to a kid, and you wouldn't think, nah, they wouldn't do that to a kid. You know? But if we're going to help Eddie, right? If we are going to spread the word, if we're going to change these laws, so no other kid gets swallowed up the way Eddie did. You know what I mean? It starts with community, man. It starts with unity. It starts together. You know? With this energy, with this fire. On multiple platforms. You know what I mean? So we just want to share this story, you know, try to educate people, you know, demand transparency, right? Amplify the O'Briens. You know, build a movement that's just too friggin' loud to ignore. Because Eddie don't need supporters. I said this. I said this shit the other day. He don't need supporters. He needs soldiers. And I think there's enough. I think there's a lot of soldiers he has. You know what I mean? He needs people who refuse to let the truth stay buried now. People who understand what's going on, the mission, why we speak, right? Why we refuse to let the system write the final chapter of this boy's life. So, you know, I mean, thank you to the O'Briens, you know, it's so frustrating to think what they're going from, you know, for trusting us with your truth, you know, to everyone that showed up, to everyone that's learning, that's listening. You know, we ain't done here, right? We're not backing down. This is the beginning. You know, but we have to move with unity, move with a purpose. You know, move for Eddie. So, yo, everybody, peace to you. Stay blessed as always. Free Eddie O'Brien till it's backwards. You know, always keep it real, always keep it authentic, and always keep it 100. We out of here, man. You know?
Now listen closely. I got a story to tell about a world that spun into a living hell. In the mid-90s, truth lost its place while the system turned its back on the human race. All they cared about was filling up the beds. Didn't matter who they grabbed, just fill up the spread. They took the innocent kids, tossed them aside. Evidence was trash, it was a twisted ride. Bodies in the system, just numbers on a page. The system didn't care about the pain or the rage. Now look around, see the streets in despair. Families breaking apart, chaos in the air. Wonder why the youth are lost in the haze. A puppet show of lives caught in a cruel maze. Stand up, dudes, taking the order they kept. Left the neighborhood shattered, families wept. Addicts in the alleys, shadows of the past. We're stuck in the cycle, feeling outclassed. Why do the corners look like a zombie show? It's by design, we all know it, don't you know? It didn't happen by stepping into the game with a heart full of hope, but nothing feels the same. They were training them to win at any cost. In a world of shadows, innocence gets lost, ignoring the law. A child's fate on the line. With every manipulation, it's a crime disguised as fine. Hypothetical spoken like weapons in the night, but the truth standing tall is ready for a fight. They call it justice, but it feels like a lie. Destroying futures in the blink of an eye. Eddie walked in with dreams on his mind, but what he found was a system unkind. We're still here fighting, the battle not done. In a world where the wicked are glorified as one. Evaluations twisted, they been like the rules. They trade silver for gold while they playing the fools. Exaggerated evidence, making it so loud, turning the innocent into a pawn for the crowd. With every step forward, it's a step into pain. A culture of winners that's driven by gain. Eddie's hopes fading like whispers in the dark, but he carries the truth, igniting a spark. They call it justice, but it feels like a lie. Destroying futures in the blink of an eye. Eddie walked in with dreams on his mind, but what he found was a system unkind. We're still here fighting, the battle not done. In a world where the wicked are glorified as one. Shatter the silence, we're raising our voice. No more deception, we reclaim our choice. Can't turn a blind eye to the hands that oppress. We're holding the light, can't settle for less. Eddie's heart beats for the ones left behind. A future unwritten, we're breaking the bind. Call it justice, but it feels like a lie. Destroying futures in the blink of an eye. Eddie walked in with dreams on his mind, but what he found was a system unkind. We're still here fighting, the battle not done. In a world where the wicked are glorified as one. So here we stay, united and strong, in the fight for the future where we all belong. Breaking the chains, let the truth be revealed. In a world that's unjust, we'll fight for the field. Eddie's legacy, etched in every word. We'll rise from the ashes, let our voices be heard.
In the courtroom lights, truth's gonna bend. Heffernan standing tall, trying to defend. Said it looked bad on paper, but it's all deeper. Politics lurking, call it a grim reaper. Eddie was just a kid, caught in the fray, but the power players had a game to play. From day one, they wanted him to fall. A kid in the spotlight, crushed by it all. Heffernan knew the truth, no, it ain't fair. Politics behind the scenes, no one would care. Guilty or innocent, the verdict was set. Justice wasn't blind, it was a political bet. Hey Mikey, do you see what I see? Flickers of light in the darks, can you hear me? It's a story we never knew, a whisper to unfold. Lay it out clean and cold. Yeah. You're tracing lines, assembling facts. Put them together like a puzzle, feel the cracks. What you laid out isn't wild at all. It's a map to a shadow where the secrets fall. Artie in the night, drawing close, it's a rhythm you feel. Can you tell me more? 8:30, it fits, doesn't it? The hours unwind, let's commit. Imagine a timeline, clean and sharp. Not a lost boy caught in the dark. Witnesses, whispers in the maze. Mapping out a truth not lost in the haze.
Mikey, we discover the lines, body and soul intertwined. Shadows dance beneath the moonlight. Pieces connecting in the dead of night. Bringing light to the truth that's out of sight. We break it apart, we ignite. Oh Mikey, oh let's shine through the fight. Revealing the stories in black and white. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Shadows dance in the neon glow. Tales of fear on the evening show. They needed a monster for the 5 o'clock news. A 15-year-old boy they could easily use. They threw his clean clothes in a blood-stained car and locked up a peacemaker behind iron bars. They called him a predator to hide their own lies. But we see the truth when we look in his eyes. A loyal young soul, so gentle and polite. We're standing together to finish this fight. Unchain the gentle giant, let a good soul breathe. Free Eddie the Teddy, it's time he's released. Break down the courtroom walls, let the truth ring clear. Bring our selfless boy home. In the 30 years